Welcome to Snoozy Tour, where every story drifts between dream and memory, where the sea whispers and history breathes again. Tonight we descend beneath the waves, into steel corridors lit by red light, where air is thin and silence has weight. This is U-552, the last patrol, a journey through the Atlantic night, told not in triumph but endurance, through the eyes of those who lived between. Pressure and fear, hope and duty. Close your eyes. Hear the hum of the engines. Feel the ocean rise around you. Let the past wash over the present, as we travel deeper into the story of men who vanished, yet never truly left the sea. You are aboard now, and the patrol has just begun. The air tastes of iron and oil. Even before your eyes open, you know where you are, 60 meters beneath the surface, wrapped in steel and darkness. The low hum of the diesel engines is gone. Only the soft, electric vibration of the motors remains. It's not silence exactly. Silence doesn't exist down here. Every second is filled with sound. The drip of condensation from a pipe, the faint tick of a pressure gauge, the muffled scrape of boots moving through narrow corridors. It's a symphony of survival, played by men who know every note by heart. You wake to the dim red glow of the control room lamps, the only color in a world built from shades of metal. The air is thick, damp, and heavy with the scent of fuel and sweat. Someone coughs from the forward compartment. Someone else mutters in his sleep. You sit up in your bunk, the ceiling just inches above your nose, and feel the rhythm of the sea pressing against the hull, steady, patient, endless. This is life aboard a U-boat. 45 men, one steel coffin, and an ocean that wants to crush you flat. You've stopped keeping track of the days. There's no sunrise here, no sunset. Just the constant cycle of watch rotations, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and the soft chime of the ship's bell that marks the passing of time you can't see. The cook says it's Wednesday. Becker, the mechanic, swears it's Monday. The Calhoun doesn't care. The sea doesn't keep calendars. You pull on your damp shirt, it never really dries, and make your way aft, brushing shoulders with men half asleep on their feet. There's no space to waste. Every inch of the boat is filled with pipes, valves, charts, cables, and people. Conversations are short and quiet. Not from discipline, but because there's nothing left to say that hasn't been said 100 times already. In the galley, Boney the cook stirs something gray and steaming in a dented pot. Breakfast, he says, though the word means little. It could be any hour. You eat standing up, spooning the salty mush from a tin bowl while the boat sways gently beneath you. The taste doesn't matter. What matters is warmth and calories and the illusion that the routine still holds. Funker, the radio man, sits hunched over his set, headphones pressed to his ears. His world is a constant whisper of static, coded transmissions, distant signals, the heartbeat of a war carried on invisible waves. Sometimes he hears other U-boats. Sometimes Allied chatter. Sometimes nothing at all. Those are the worst nights, when the air itself seems empty. You pass him on your way to the control room. The Calhoun, the captain, stands by the periscope, silent, hands clasped behind his back. He's barely older than you, but his eyes have seen more ocean than most men see land in a lifetime. He doesn't need to speak. His presence alone holds the boat together. When he moves, everyone moves. When he stops, everyone waits. For now, the orders are simple. Maintain depth, maintain silence, and wait for nightfall. Only then can you surface to charge the batteries. Only then can you breathe air that hasn't already passed through a dozen lungs. You glance at the depth gauge. 60 meters. Safe enough for now. The hull groans faintly with the pressure. You've learned not to flinch at it. That sound means the boat is alive, bending but not breaking, singing its steel song against the weight of the sea. Sometimes, in moments like this, you almost forget there's a war happening above you. The Atlantic feels eternal, its tides older than nations, its darkness indifferent to victory or defeat. Down here it's not about sides. It's about endurance. A droplet of water slides down the bulkhead, glimmering in the red light before falling to the floor. You watch it, hypnotized. Even time moves slower under pressure. Then, faintly, a voice from the sonar room. Contact. Bearing 140. Everyone freezes. The Calhoun steps forward. The sonar operator listens, head tilted, expression unreadable. Seconds pass. A soft smile tugs at the corner of his mouth. Whale, he says. Just a whale. Laughter ripples through the compartment. Tense, nervous, but real. Someone claps the sonar man on the shoulder. Becker mutters, "Next time it'll be a destroyer, you'll see." The Calhoun doesn't laugh, but he doesn't need to. His silence is approval enough. When the tension fades, you return to your post, hands resting on the cold metal railing. Somewhere above you lies the surface, a world of waves and wind, of clouds and sky and sunlight. You try to remember what the sun feels like on your face. The memory comes slow, distant, like recalling a dream. You close your eyes and breathe shallowly through your nose. The air smells like rust and men and oil. You've learned to find comfort in it, because this smell means you're still alive. Hours later, the engines hum louder. The Calhoun gives the quiet order, "Prepare to surface." You feel the shift immediately, the boat rising, buoyancy returning. The pressure lightens, the hull sighs. The ladder rattles as men climb toward the conning tower. You follow, boots echoing on steel. When the hatch opens, the night air pours in, cold, wet, glorious. The stars stretch endless above the black Atlantic. You breathe deeply for the first time in days. For a moment, you could almost believe the world is at peace. Then the Kalian's voice cuts through the wind. "Look sharp. The sea remembers everything." And beneath the calm, you know he's right. The call comes at 1800 hours. No alarm, no ceremony, just a curt order passed from man to man until it reaches every corner of the boat. Besprechung control room. Meeting in the control room. You wipe the oil from your hands and follow the slow shuffle of bodies through the narrow passageway. The air grows heavier with every step, thick with anticipation and the sour tang of diesel that never really leaves your clothes. Even before you arrive, you can sense the mood, restrained, serious, a kind of quiet that presses against the skin. The Calhoun stands beneath the central light, his cap tucked under one arm, coat collar open. Around him, the officers form a half circle: navigator, chief engineer, weapons officer. Each with that same lean, sleepless look of men who have spent too long beneath the sea. You and the others crowd along the edges, trying not to seem like you're listening, but everyone is. "We're low on torpedoes," the Calhoun begins. His voice is low, steady, carrying through the hull like a tide. "Fuel's at 60%. We've done what we came to do." A pause follows. The kind of silence that makes you aware of every heartbeat, every creak in the hull. Then, "New orders. We return to Brest." You feel it like a pulse through the boat. "Oh." The word ripples through the crew, cautious but bright. You catch Becker's eye, he gives the smallest of grins. Even Funker, usually stone-faced, exhales through his nose, a ghost of relief. But the Calhoun isn't finished. He glances toward the chart table where the navigator stands waiting. "We take the silent route," he says. "No surfacing past dusk. Stay off the shipping lanes. Radio silence unless ordered otherwise. Still calm. Still controlled." Then his eyes lift. "Enemy aircraft are active over the bay," he continues. "Especially at dawn. We surface only at night. Ready depth charges at all times." The room shifts. Shoulders stiffen. Someone clears his throat. The Biscay Gauntlet. Everyone's heard the stories. Boats strafed on the surface, bombed in daylight, caught half submerged before they could dive. You've made it through combat, through patrols and pressure, but this is the last stretch where luck decides who gets home. The Calhoun looks around the circle, reading the tension, the fatigue, the fear. Then he nods once. "We've come this far," he says quietly. "We'll finish it. That's all." Meeting over. Orders given. The officers disperse first, voices low, heads bent over charts. You linger near the bulkhead, watching as the captain moves to the periscope. For a moment, he's framed by the red glow of the lights, a silhouette of precision and burden. He doesn't look heroic. He looks tired, but steady. You think about what home means now. Not cities or families or peace. Just a dock. A pen. Dry land under your boots and the chance to breathe without steel between you and the sky. That night, the atmosphere aboard the boat shifts subtly. There's less talk, fewer jokes. Every action becomes deliberate. The mechanic checks the engines twice, then once more after that. The cook cleans his ladles until they shine. You catch Ritter, the youngest of you, folding and refolding a letter in his pocket until the paper starts to tear. Everyone has their ritual for surviving the waiting. At 2100, you're back at your post. The control room glows faintly, red lights flickering across sweating metal. The boat hums with life beneath your boots. Someone whispers a prayer. Someone else hums a tune, Off-key, slow and strange but comforting in the way old songs are. Funker's radio crackles softly. Static. Then a short-coded burst, confirmation of your orders, nothing more. He writes it down, hands trembling slightly, then sets the pencil aside. Returning to Brest, he murmurs under his breath as if testing the words. Returning? The Kaloon moves through the compartment, speaking to no one but acknowledging everyone with a glance. You wonder if he ever sleeps. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe captains don't get that luxury. When your shift ends, you crawl into your bunk and lie still, listening to the vibrations in the walls. The rhythm of the motors. The whisper of air through the vents. The sound of the sea brushing against steel. You close your eyes and imagine the coast. The lights of Brest flickering through mist, the scent of fish and oil, the clatter of boots on cobblestones. The laughter of men who've survived another patrol. You imagine your feet on dry land, the feel of gravity without motion, the silence that doesn't carry threat. You almost smile. Then, faintly, you hear the sonar man's voice from the next compartment. Contact. Bearing unknown. Instantly, the rhythm changes. The lights shift. Orders ripple through the corridor. The Kalian's voice cuts through it all. All stop. Hold depth. Listen. Every man freezes. The engines die. The world narrows to sound. You wait. 1 second. 10. 30. Nothing. The sonar man exhales, shaking his head. False echo, he says. Probably temperature layer. The Kaloon nods. Maintain depth. Resume course. The hum returns. The tension doesn't. You roll over, heart still pounding. Out there, somewhere in the blackness, the enemy is listening too. Men in destroyers scanning the same sea, waiting for the same signal, hunting the same ghosts. You whisper a thought you wouldn't dare say aloud. May they be as tired as we are. Above, the Atlantic waits, cold, infinite, and hungry. But tonight, you believe what Becker said earlier in the mess. When we get home, it'll be Friday. And somehow that's enough to keep breathing. The boat slides through the deep like a whisper. No chatter. No music. Even the usual murmurs of the crew have faded, swallowed by the gravity of silence. Every man knows the rule. Silent route means survival. At 60 meters, the water is dark as oil. You can't see it, but you feel its weight pressing on every surface, every thought. The hull groans softly now and then, the steel flexing against the pressure. It's not a sound that frightens you anymore, it's almost comforting. Like hearing the heartbeat of something larger than yourself. You sit by your post, headphones slung loosely around your neck, listening to the sea. Nothing but the faint throb of the electric motors. Becker walks past with his tools clinking against his belt, muttering about valve pressure. He never really stops working. It's his way of keeping fear busy. Hours blend. Time stretches down here. You count meals instead of days. You count breaths instead of hours. Funker taps his pencil against the edge of his logbook. 3 taps, pause, 3 more. Morse rhythm. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. The Kaloon moves quietly through the compartments, stopping to check gauges, whispering a few words to the officers. He has a face carved from calm, never smiling, never frowning, but always aware. You wonder if he ever doubts himself. Maybe that's the secret of command. Not confidence, but the ability to hide fear so well it starts to believe it's courage. In the galley, Boney serves thin soup from a dented pot. Potato and something that might once have been sausage. Eat, he says. It's hot. You take the bowl. The steam fogs your face. It tastes like salt and metal, but it warms your throat and that's enough. The routine is mechanical now. Sleep. Maintain depth. Listen. Every movement is careful, deliberate. The ocean outside waits for mistakes. At 0200, you surface for a brief charge. The batteries are low, oxygen thinner than it should be. The Kaloon gives a nod and Becker opens the vents. The hull tilts upward. You feel the shift, the subtle buoyancy as the boat begins to rise. Pressure lightens. The men breathe deeper. The conning tower hatch opens and night air floods in, wet, cold, alive. You climb topside, joining the watch. The sky is starless, smothered by low clouds. The horizon vanishes into the black. You hear only the diesel's low rumble and the slosh of water against steel. Clear skies would be nice, you murmur. Clear skies get you killed, the watch officer replies, eyes on his binoculars. He's right. Somewhere above those clouds, the Allies are waiting, planes with eyes sharper than any periscope, engines that can smell diesel miles away. The Bay of Biscay isn't just water, it's a graveyard with wings. Every few minutes, the Kaloon checks the horizon himself. His coat flaps in the wind, cap shadowing his face. You can't tell if he's cold or just thinking. Probably both. Speed 12 knots, he says quietly. 2 hours only. You adjust the controls, feeling the subtle vibration rise through the deck. The diesels drink the air greedily. The batteries hum as they charge. The night feels alive, electric, almost holy in its stillness. Then the lookout speaks, light on the horizon, bearing 180. Instantly hearts stop. The Kalian's head snaps toward the direction. A faint glimmer, maybe lightning, maybe death. Hold course, he says. Watch it. For a minute it flickers again, then vanishes. No aircraft, no searchlight, just the ocean playing its tricks. Still, no one breathes easy until the Kaloon says, dive. You descend again. The familiar pressure returns, the hull tightening around you like an embrace. Motors hum. Lights dim. Voices fade. The sea becomes a dark cathedral, and every sound feels sacred. Down here, silence isn't absence. It's presence. You hear your own heartbeat louder than the engines. You hear the air valves sigh. You hear Becker curse softly under his breath when a wrench slips. And beneath it all, you hear the slow, steady rhythm of the sea pressing in. Later in the mess, someone whispers, "How long till Brest?" 5 days, comes the answer. 5 days if the sky lets us. You all nod. 5 days might as well be 5 years. Time doesn't work the same when every minute could be your last. You take out your pocket watch, a gift from your brother before the war. The hands are frozen. It stopped sometime last week. You don't wind it. There's no point. Down here, the sea owns time. When your shift ends, you lie in your bunk. The air smells faintly of oil and damp wool. Someone nearby snores softly. Someone else mumbles in his sleep. You stare at the ceiling just inches above your face and think of air. Real air. The kind that moves freely across fields, not through pipes. You imagine wind on your cheeks, sunlight on your hands. Then you stop yourself. Those thoughts are dangerous. They make you forget where you are. The Kalian's words echo from earlier, silent route. No surfacing past dusk. Stay off the lanes. You repeat them in your head like a prayer. Not out of faith, but because repetition feels like control. Before sleep takes you, you hear the faint chime of a bell somewhere forward. The sonar man marking the hour. The sound carries through the steel like a lullaby for men who can't afford to dream. You close your eyes. The hum of the motors fades to a heartbeat. The ocean presses close, listening. And somewhere in that endless dark, you begin to believe that silence itself might be the only thing keeping you alive. It begins with light. A flicker, faint and far off, barely visible through the haze of sea spray and night. For a moment, you think it's a star breaking through cloud. Then a second light appears beside it, and you know, stars don't move like that. Licht. Zvayur. Hohi. The lookout's voice cracks through the wind. Light. 2 o'clock. Altitude. The words hit like a hammer. The Kaloon doesn't hesitate. Alarm Tachin. Crash dive. The order explodes through the submarine like an electric shock. Boots slam against steel ladders. Hands yank valves open. Air shrieks as ballast tanks flood. Someone curses, someone else drops a wrench, and above it all the metallic whine of pressure surges fills the hull. You dive fast, the deck tilting sharply beneath your feet. Cold water slaps against the conning tower as the boat slips beneath the waves. The hatch above you slams shut with a clang that echoes through your teeth. You grab the railing near the control room and hold tight as the U-boat plunges downward, the tilt pulling your stomach into your throat. Everything shakes. The gauges, the pipes, the breath in your lungs. 60 meters. 80. 90. The hull moans under pressure. Someone shouts, "Tanks sealed." Another yells back, "Trim adjusted." You can feel the sea clamping down, pressing its weight against every rivet, every bolt. Then, crump. A dull, distant sound like a hammer striking the far end of a cathedral. Not close enough to kill, but close enough to remind you what waits above. Depth charge. The Kalian's voice cuts through the chaos. Calm sharp. Hold depth. Engines stop. Silent running. The motors die. The world contracts into a single heartbeat. You can hear it, yours and the man beside you. The air grows still, thick with oil and breath and terror. Another explosion. Closer. The lights flicker, then stabilize. Becker mutters something under his breath in German, half prayer, half curse. The boat groans again, deeper this time. You imagine the steel bending like bone. Every instinct screams to move, to flee, to do something. But that's not how you survive down here. You survive by staying still. The next explosion is farther away. Then another, farther still. Then silence. No one moves. No one breathes. You stare at the pressure gauge, watching the needle tremble, waiting for it to steady. Minutes pass. They feel like hours. Finally, the sonar man whispers, "They're gone. For now." The Kaloon nods once. Maintain depth. Resume watch rotation. His tone doesn't change. It never does. It's what keeps you anchored when everything else feels like it's dissolving. Around you, the crew exhales as one. Some smile. Some wipe sweat from their foreheads. Some just close their eyes and stay perfectly still, as if afraid to disturb the fragile luck holding the boat together. You lean back against the bulkhead and let the tension drain from your hands. They're shaking. You hadn't noticed. Becker laughs softly. You see? Just a love tap. Funker grins without humor. If that was love, I'll stay single. The laughter helps. It always does. It's a kind of rebellion, proof that fear hasn't won yet. Hours later, the Kaloon orders a surface check. You rise cautiously, the motors humming low. The pressure lifts. The hull breathes again. At 30 meters, the water lightens from black to gray. At 20, the first glimmer of moonlight filters through the periscope lens. Then, with a soft hiss, the surface breaks. The hatch opens. Cold air floods in, shocking, alive, full of salt and freedom. You climb topside with the others. The sea stretches empty in every direction. The searchlights are gone. Only the stars remain, flickering faintly through shredded clouds. You breathe deep. It tastes like salvation. The Kaloon joins you on the bridge, binoculars raised. His coat flaps in the wind. He scans the horizon for a long time before speaking. "We were lucky," he says quietly. Becker chuckles. "Luck's part of the job." The Kaloon lowers the binoculars. Luck runs out. No one answers. You all stand there for a while, watching the ocean shimmer under the moonlight. Somewhere far above, invisible in the dark, you can almost hear engines, the faint, distant growl of aircraft still hunting. The Kaloon says, "Back under." The order isn't shouted this time. It's gentle, necessary. You take one last breath of open air before climbing down. The hatch closes. The world shrinks again to steel and sweat and recycled air. But this time, something feels different. The silence doesn't seem empty anymore. It feels earned, like the space between heartbeats after a sprint. Later, in your bunk, you press your forehead against the cold metal wall and listen to the deep hum of the motors. The sea murmurs outside, steady and vast. You think of the searchlights, the roar of the bombs, the chaos that nearly erased you. Then you think of the moonlight, the air, the brief taste of sky. You're alive. That's enough. You whisper a promise to yourself, not to God, not to country, but to the steel hull that keeps you breathing. Just a few more days. Then land. Then light. Then silence without fear. Outside, the Atlantic stirs, heavy and ancient. It never sleeps. But tonight, for a while, it lets you go. Dawn doesn't exist down here. Just degrees of darkness. The light that filters through the periscope is weak and gray, barely enough to tell 1 hour from the next. Still, something has changed. The air feels lighter. The vibration softer. The ocean itself, quieter. You notice it first when the Kaloon orders the hydrophones to full sensitivity. The sonar man tilts his head, listening through the static hiss of the sea. Then suddenly he frowns. "Unusual frequency," he says. Everyone stills. The Kaloon steps closer. "Ship." The sonar man shakes his head slowly. No screws. Organic sound. High pitch. Short echo. The Kaloon waits, listening. Then, faintly through the hull, you hear it too. A cry, sharp, quick, distant. Not mechanical. Not human. A gull. For a moment, no one breathes. Then someone laughs. A high, nervous sound that ripples through the compartment like sunlight through dust. "Birds?" Becker says, his voice bright and disbelieving. "They're birds?" You grin before you even realize it. The tension that's gripped your chest for days loosens. A bird means air. Air means land. Land means port. It's the simplest equation in the world, and right now it feels like salvation. The Kaloon doesn't smile, but he doesn't need to. His eyes soften just slightly. "Maintain depth," he says. "No changes. Not yet." You nod. You know better than to celebrate too early. The Bay of Biscay is still ahead, a stretch of sea that swallows careless men whole. But still a gull. Hours pass. The sound comes again, closer now, clearer. Each time, it feels like a promise whispered through salt and steel. Later, the Kaloon allows the periscope to rise. You stand close enough to see his reflection in the glass, unshaven, eyes ringed with exhaustion. He sweeps the horizon in slow, deliberate arcs. Then quietly he murmurs, "Cloud cover thinning. Sea color changing. We're near the coast." You feel a surge in your chest, half hope, half disbelief. After so many nights of darkness, the thought of color seems unreal. When the Kaloon lowers the scope, he speaks softly, almost to himself, "Prepare to surface after dusk." The message spreads quickly, though no one says it out loud. You see it in their faces, in Becker's sudden energy, in Boney's attempt to scrub the galley walls, in Funker humming under his breath for the first time in weeks. Hope is contagious. The day drags like a slow current. You check gauges twice, polish tools that don't need it, count the seconds between the sonar pings just to stay sane. When the order finally comes, the boat rises with agonizing patience. 60 meters. 40. 20. 10. The ballast tanks hiss. The pressure fades. The surface rushes toward you like breath returning to lungs. Then, with a final surge, the U-boat breaks through. The hatch opens. Cold night air floods in, sharp and wet. You climb topside with the others, boots clanging softly against the ladder. The first thing you notice is the smell, not oil or rust, but something sweeter. Grass maybe. Trees. Land. You close your eyes and breathe deep, letting it fill every corner of your chest. Above you, the stars burn steady, unblinking. The sea is calm, moonlight scattering across the swells like spilled mercury. For the first time in what feels like years, the horizon isn't empty. It glows faintly orange, low and distant. Rest. You can almost taste it. "Speed 8 knots, the Kaloon says softly. "Silent engines. Stay close to the coastline." You nod. The men move like dancers now, precise, quiet, efficient. Every command is answered before it's finished. No wasted motion. Everyone knows what's at stake. An hour passes. Then 2. The smell of the shore grows stronger. The sea changes color under the moonlight from black to dark green. You can see the shape of the waves, the foam curling like white breath. Then you hear it again, the gull. Closer this time. Clear. It cries once, circles overhead, then vanishes into the mist. A few men laugh quietly. Not joy, not relief, something deeper. Gratitude maybe. You glance at Becker, standing beside the tower rail, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Still think it's Friday?" you ask. He smirks. "When we dock, it'll be Sunday lunch." Even the Kaloon almost smiles. As the night stretches on, the sea remains mercifully calm. No aircraft. No sonar. Just the steady rhythmic churn of the engines. The boat hums like a heartbeat beneath your feet. When the Kaloon finally says, "Dive to 20 meters," no one protests. The surface is too dangerous now this close to port. You slip beneath the water one last time, the hull sighing as it takes the weight. But even down here you can still feel it, the nearness of land. The ocean's voice is different, softer somehow, as if even it knows you're almost free. In your bunk, you press a hand against the wall and whisper, "Just a few more miles." The steel is cold and solid beneath your palm, humming faintly with life. You think of home, not as a place but as a moment. A sound. The cry of a gull against an endless sky. The sea doesn't answer. But for once, it doesn't have to. It starts as a rumor of color on the horizon. At first, you think it's imagination, the eyes playing tricks after weeks of shadow and steel. But as the night deepens, it grows brighter. Not lightning. Not flares. A faint, orange shimmer that wavers through mist and cloud. Lights, the lookout whispers. The word moves through the crew like electricity. Men climb toward the periscope, toward the observation ports, just to glimpse it for themselves. It's distant, blurred, but steady. The glow of a city that survived the night. Rest. You all stare. No one dares to speak too loud, as if the sound of hope itself might draw the enemy down from the clouds. The Kaloon joins you on the bridge, binoculars in hand. His face is unreadable, but his jaw tightens when he sees it. He lowers the glasses slowly. "Harbor lights," he confirms. "We're home." The words don't bring celebration. They bring silence, the heavy kind that follows a long-held breath finally released. The Kaloon gives the next order in a tone softer than you've ever heard. "Plot course for entry channel. We'll stay low until the harbor code comes through. No signals. No lights." The navigator traces a red line across the chart with a trembling pencil. Each mark represents another chance to die this close to safety. The Bay of Biscay is littered with wrecks that never made it home. Boats caught in searchlights. Mines that drifted where they shouldn't. Planes that appeared out of nowhere at dawn. The ocean has a cruel sense of humor. It often spares you just long enough to make you believe you'll live. The Kaloon glances around the control room. "No errors," he says. "Not tonight." The crew moves with sacred precision. Becker checks ballast controls. Funker adjusts radio channels, listening for the guiding signal from shore. The sonar operator leans close to his set, searching the dark water for anything that moves. You're at 20 meters now, crawling toward the coast like a creature afraid of light. The Kaloon paces slowly. "Surface at 0300, he says. "Quick run through the nets. The harbor watch will be ready." A few men exchange looks. "Mines?" someone whispers. The Kaloon doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. You all know there are mines, floating sentinels chained to the bottom, waiting for one mistake. Hours pass like years. The ocean hums around you, vast and indifferent. Somewhere far above, you can almost sense the coastline waiting, stone and salt and smoke. Civilization. Humanity. Life. Then, faintly, the radio crackles. Funker straightens. "Signal received," he says. "Harbor code confirmed." The Kaloon nods once. "Surface." The ballast tanks hiss. The hull groans softly. The U-boat rises through the water, shedding pressure like a man shedding fear. The hatch opens. The air that rushes in is wet and cold, but different, soaked with earth and with smoke, not salt alone. You climb topside and look out. There they are. Lights. Dozens of them, scattered along the curved mouth of the bay. Lamps strung across the docks. Beacons pulsing from the breakwater towers. The faint golden halos of buildings just beyond the shore. It doesn't feel real. After so long in darkness, even faint light feels holy. "Breast," Becker whispers. His voice cracks. "Skies. We made it." No one cheers. No one dares. You just stand there, shoulder to shoulder, letting your eyes drink it in. The Kaloon raises his binoculars again. "Harbor entry confirmed," he says. "Steady speed. Helm 5 degrees port." The engines thrum. The bow cuts through the black water, trailing a low wake that glows faintly under the reflection of the harbor lamps. The sea feels different here, less cruel, almost gentle, like it's letting you go. You pass the breakwater. The concrete walls loom tall on either side, lit by floodlights that turn the spray into gold dust. Men on the docks move like ghosts under the lamps, their figures barely visible through the mist. A small patrol boat approaches from the right, signaling with a covered lantern. You flash back the code. U-552 returning from patrol. The reply comes instantly, "Proceed." Dock 4. You exhale. You hadn't realized you'd been holding your breath. Minutes later, the submarine glides into the pen. Floodlights glare down from above, harsh white slicing through shadow. You see the walls first, massive, scarred, streaked with years of soot and salt. Then the figures waiting on the pier, dockhands, mechanics, officers, silent and efficient. Ropes fly. Clamps lock. The engines die. The hum that's lived beneath your ribs for weeks finally fades. For a moment, there's no sound. Just stillness. Then someone coughs. Someone else laughs softly, almost in disbelief. The spell breaks. You climb out onto the deck. Your boots hit solid concrete. Estranged that first step, your legs wobble, unsure of the stillness beneath them. The air smells of oil, smoke, and something faintly sweet, the scent of earth. Becker stands beside you, staring up at the floodlights. "Can't believe it," he mutters. "We actually came back." You nod. "This time." He glances at you, the corner of his mouth lifting. "That's all that matters." You don't say it aloud, but you both know what he means. Some boats never return. Some names will never be read again. But you're here, breathing, whole. As the dock crew begins unloading, the Kaloon remains on deck a moment longer, his coat whipping in the wind. He looks out toward the dark sea beyond the harbor walls, toward the place you've just escaped, and for the first time, you see something in his eyes you can't name. Respect maybe, or fear. Then he turns. "Secure the boat," he says. "Well done, men." And just like that, it's over. No victory speech, no anthem. Just the sound of boots on wet concrete, and the echo of the sea retreating behind you. You take one last look back at the black water. The surface ripples under the floodlights, calm, indifferent. You whisper to it, soft, almost grateful. "We made it." But in the silence that follows, you swear the sea whispers back. For now. The first thing you notice is the quiet. Not the silence of the deep, thick, heavy, and alive, but a thin, fragile quiet that feels almost wrong. The kind of quiet that breaks if you breathe too loud. You wake in a bunk that doesn't sway. For a second, your body panics. The absence of motion feels unnatural. Your mind still expects the slow rhythm of the hull shifting with the tide, the heartbeat hum of the engines beneath your spine. You sit up too fast, half expecting to hit your head on a pipe. There's only empty space above you. The barracks room smells of soap and wood polish, sharp, clean, unreal. The light slanting through the window is thin and gold, brushing over dust motes that float like ghosts in the air. Sunlight. Real sunlight. You squint against it. For a long moment, you just sit there, blinking, letting your eyes adjust to color again. The world isn't gray anymore. It's beige, brown, blue, 1,000 shades you'd forgotten existed. Outside, boots thump against the cobblestones, voices call in French and German, distant gulls cry over the harbor. Somewhere a church bell rings. You can't remember the last time you heard something so human. Becker pushes the door open with his shoulder, holding 2 tin cups of coffee. "Morning," he grunts, tossing one to you. You catch it clumsily. The liquid sloshes over the rim, hot and bitter. "Doesn't feel real," you mutter. He sits on the next bunk, stretching until his joints pop. "That's because it isn't. Not yet. Wait till you walk outside, you'll start missing the boat in 5 minutes." You laugh quietly, then stop, realizing he's not entirely joking. He takes a sip of his coffee and stares at the wall. "I dreamed of the engines last night," he says. "Could hear them humming. Woke up and it was gone. Felt wrong." You nod. "I dreamed of silence. It scared me." He glances over. You're not the only one. The door creaks again and the Kaloon steps in. He's freshly shaved, uniform crisp, but his eyes look older than they did yesterday. He nods to both of you. "Medical inspection at 9. Debrief after. Shore leave at 1400. "Understood, sir," Becker says. The Kaloon lingers a moment, then adds quietly, "Enjoy the air while you can. You'll miss it soon enough." He leaves without another word. The door swings shut. You stare at it, realizing he's right. You've spent so long beneath the surface that open air feels dangerous now, like stepping onto thin ice. By the time you reach the street, the sun is high and sharp, throwing long shadows across the harbor. The docks are alive with movement. Cranes swinging, mechanics shouting, sailors hauling crates, all under the watchful eyes of officers with clipboards. The U-boats sit in their pens like sleeping beasts, their black hulls streaked with salt. Steam rises from their open hatches. You stop at the edge of the pier and look out at the water. The sea is blue again, blue not black. It looks harmless now, glinting under the light, pretending innocence. You know better. You can almost feel it watching, waiting for the next patrol. Becker joins you, lighting a cigarette. "Strange, isn't it?" he says. "All this life happening just a few meters from where death waits." You nod. It doesn't make sense. He exhales smoke into the wind. War never does. Behind you, someone laughs, a group of mechanics leaning against the supply truck. Their laughter is loud, reckless, alive. You envy them, and for a moment you hate them for it. They don't carry the ocean in their lungs. The mess hall is full at midday. Long tables, chipped mugs, the smell of bread and fried onions. You eat slowly, savoring every bite as though food might vanish again at any moment. Conversation hums softly around you. Stories from other boats, names of men who didn't return, rumors of the next assignment. When someone mentions a missing U-boat, the room goes quiet. The name of the vessel hangs in the air like smoke. Then someone mutters, "They'll call it mechanical failure." Another voice answers, "They always do." You look down at your plate. The food turns to ash in your mouth. After lunch, you wander alone along the upper docks. The wind carries the smell of salt and diesel and the faint sweetness of land, grass, flowers, something green. You haven't smelled green in months. In a corner of the yard, a young sailor sits cleaning his boots. His hands tremble slightly. You recognize the look in his eyes, the distant, hollow focus of someone still underwater in his mind. "First patrol?" you ask. He looks up and nods. "Yes, sir." "Enjoy the next few days," you tell him. "They'll go fast." He smiles faintly, unsure if it's advice or a warning. By late afternoon, the sun begins to dip behind the hills. The harbor lights flicker on, those same orange glows that saved you last night. You stand on the breakwater, hands in your pockets, watching the sea turn dark again. For a moment, you think you hear it calling, the low, endless voice of the deep, muffled beneath the waves. You turn away before it can finish. Becker finds you later in the barracks, already half asleep. "You coming out tonight?" he asks. The pub by the square's open again. "Maybe tomorrow," you say. "I just need to feel still for a while." He nods, understanding. Stillness never lasts long. When he's gone, you lie back and stare at the ceiling. The quiet hums in your ears, soft and unreal. Somewhere outside, a ship's horn echoes across the bay, a sound that feels both distant and intimate, like a memory that hasn't finished happening. You close your eyes. For the first time in weeks, you fall asleep without the sea beneath you. But in your dreams, you're already sinking. The smell hits you before anything else. Rich, sharp, unmistakable. Real coffee. Not the bitter, grainy imitation brewed from roasted barley aboard the U-boat, but genuine beans. You follow it like a man chasing salvation through the mess hall doors. Steam curls from tin kettles. The cooks move briskly behind the counter, ladling portions of scrambled eggs and rye bread onto trays. You can hardly remember the last time you saw food served on a plate that didn't sway with the tide. You sit with Becker and Funker near the far end of a long wooden table. The benches creak under the weight of a dozen uniforms. Men eat quietly, no shouting, no laughter, just the sound of spoons clinking against metal. You take your first sip. It burns your tongue. You don't care. The bitterness is perfect, almost holy. You swallow slow, eyes closed, and for a second you can almost forget the sea. Across from you, Becker spreads jam onto his bread. "Tastes strange," he mutters. "It's sugar," you tell him. "You've just forgotten what it's supposed to taste like." He chuckles softly. "Forgotten what a lot of things taste like." Funker sits hunched over his cup, eyes half closed. He doesn't drink so much as hold it, as if warming his hands on something that might vanish. The skin beneath his eyes is dark, hollowed out by weeks without real rest. "They're giving us 48 hours leave," he murmurs. 2 days. 2 days, Becker echoes. Long enough to remember what peace feels like. Not long enough to believe in it. You eat slowly, reverently. The bread's dry but real, the butter thin but fragrant. You scrape the plate clean. Around you, men are doing the same, each one pretending the next bite isn't the first real food they've had in months. A young crewman from another boat stands to refill his mug. His hands shake slightly. Someone whispers, "He lost 6 men last patrol." You look up. His uniform hangs loose on his frame, eyes dull, movements automatic. He sits again and stares at nothing. The silence in the hall thickens. A radio somewhere near the kitchen plays a soft tune, something old from before the war. The melody winds through the air like smoke, fragile and familiar. For a moment, it feels like another lifetime. Becker breaks the quiet first. "They'll send us out again soon," he says. No one answers. He sighs, pushing his plate aside. You can feel it. The officers, the docks, the damn cranes, they're all moving faster. Like the war's running out of patience. You nod because you've felt it too. The sense that the world above water is racing ahead while you're still trapped in the slow pulse of the sea. After breakfast, you wander outside. The air is cold but bright, the sky washed clean after rain. The port hums with life. Workers roll barrels toward the warehouses. Seagulls wheel overhead, loud and shameless. The rhythmic clang of hammers echoes from the pens. You stop at a railing overlooking the harbor. The U-boat lies below, half hidden beneath the massive concrete arches. Dockhands swarm around her, patching, scrubbing, loading crates. The metal hull gleams under the sunlight, streaked with rust where the salt ate through the paint. You stare at it for a long time. The longer you look, the less it feels like a machine and more like something alive. Breathing. Waiting. Becker joins you after a while, his coat collar turned up against the wind. Can't stay away, can you? You smile faintly. Feels strange to be above it. Like standing on a grave you haven't finished digging. He studies the submarine, hands in his pockets. We'll be back there soon enough. Do you want to be? He doesn't answer right away. I don't know. It's hell down there, but it's simple. You know what's expected. Up here it's too quiet. Too bright. People look at you like you're something else. Hero, ghost, take your pick. He flicks ash into the water. But I know this much. Every time we come back, it gets harder to breathe on land. You understand exactly what he means. Later in town, the streets buzz with a muted kind of life. Civilians hurry past. Dockworkers, shopkeepers, women in gray coats. Some glance at you, at the uniform, then look away quickly. You can't tell if it's pride or pity in their eyes. You pass a bakery. The scent of yeast and sugar spills out the open door, sweet and intoxicating. You stop long enough to buy a small loaf. The baker nods silently, avoiding your gaze. You break off a piece and eat it as you walk. It's soft, warm, impossibly good. You end up in a small square near the docks. A fountain trickles in the center, surrounded by empty benches. You sit, letting the sunlight hit your face. For a moment, you close your eyes and let the warmth soak in. The sound of the city folds around you, gulls, footsteps, the distant ring of metal against metal. It should be peaceful. But under it all, there's something else. A hum you can't quite place. A rhythm that doesn't belong to the surface world. It's the memory of the engines. The sea. The heartbeat of the U-boat still echoing somewhere in your chest. You finish the last piece of bread and brush the crumbs from your lap. The square is quiet again. You tell yourself you're safe now. But deep down, you know, safety is just another word for waiting. The evening falls soft over Brest, painting the sky in slow strokes of violet and smoke. The harbor's cranes stand still now, silhouettes against the dying light. Somewhere beyond the pens, a tugboat horn moans low and distant, like an animal calling across water. You sit on the edge of your bunk, a half-written letter on your knees. The paper trembles in your hand, not from cold but from the strange weight of words that refuse to settle. It begins the same way it always does. I'm well. Don't worry. You stare at the line for a long time. The lie hums gently between the ink and your pulse. You glance around the barracks. Most of the men are gone. Some to the taverns, some to the women who smile for sailors with medals. Becker and Funker had invited you along earlier, but you declined. The noise of laughter feels too foreign tonight. Instead, you listen to the small sounds of the room, the creak of the wooden rafters, the soft drip of a leaky pipe, the shuffle of a broom somewhere down the hall. For the first time in months, you are surrounded by space, and you don't know what to do with it. The paper before you stares back like a mirror. You write another line. The patrol went well. Then another. We are proud of our Kowloon. You stop. The truth pushes against your throat like a held breath. You think of U-96, of the lightless water above their hull, of the last ping on the sonar that faded into nothing. You cross out the last sentence and start again. We lost friends. That's all. You can't write more. The sea will take care of the details. You fold the letter once, twice, then stop short of sealing it. It feels wrong to finish it, as if putting it in an envelope would trap the ghost inside. From the far end of the hall, footsteps echo. Funker appears, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. He leans against the doorframe. Writing? Trying. He nods, exhales a curl of smoke. You'll never send it. I know. He steps closer, sitting across from you. The shadows under his eyes are deeper tonight. My mother still writes every week, he says. Even when I don't reply. She thinks no news is good news. You smile weakly. She's right. He shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe it's just easier to believe that. The two of you sit in silence for a while. Outside, the gulls have quieted. The only sound is the faint hiss of wind sneaking through a cracked window. Funker glances at the letter. What would you tell them if you could? You think for a moment. That the sea doesn't hate us, you say finally. It just doesn't care whether we come back. He nods, thoughtful. That's more honest than the papers. He crushes the cigarette against the floorboards, stands and pats your shoulder. Get some rest, comrade. The sea will still be there tomorrow. When he's gone, you look at the letter again. The ink has smudged slightly where your thumb pressed too long. You fold it anyway, slip it into your jacket pocket, and lie back on the bunk. You don't dream of the sea that night. You dream of the docks, the smell of diesel and bread, the sound of boots echoing on metal, a figure waving from the end of the pier, a face you almost recognize before the light changes and they're gone. You wake before dawn. The air is still heavy with fog. You pull on your coat and walk outside. The harbor is quiet now. No shouting, no engines, no movement. Just mist coiling through the cranes and the faint hum of a city not yet awake. You walk until the cobblestones end at the edge of the breakwater. The water below is black glass. Somewhere far out, a buoy bell tolls lazily in the fog. You take the letter from your pocket. The paper's soft now, edges curled with sweat. For a moment you think about mailing it anyway. About sending it to Hamburg, to a woman who still sets a place at the table for a son who may not come home. But you don't. Instead, you tear it once down the middle. The pieces flutter in your hands for a heartbeat, then fall into the water below. The ripples widen, swallow them whole, and vanish. You stand there until the fog lifts enough for the light to break through, thin and cold but real. When you turn back toward the barracks, the city is waking. Trucks rumble along the quays. A church bell rings the hour. Somewhere, a radio crackles with morning news. Reports of convoys, bombings, losses. The world moves on. You slip your hands into your pockets, feeling the absence of the letter like a missing heartbeat. Behind you, the tide rolls in, gentle but sure. The sea, as always, takes everything. By the second evening, the quiet starts to ache. The pubs and the cafes feel too warm, too bright, too full of voices that don't know the weight of water. You try to lose yourself among them. Civilians laughing too loud, sailors from other boats boasting about patrols that ended weeks ago, but the sound feels wrong. The laughter rings hollow, bouncing off walls that don't echo the way steel does. So you go back. The walk to the submarine pens is longer than you remember. The fog hangs low over the harbor, curling around the street lamps like smoke. The city's pulse fades behind you, the clatter of carts, the hum of conversation, the faint clink of bottles, and all that remains is the soft rhythm of your boots against wet concrete. You pass checkpoints that barely glance at your papers. They've seen enough faces like yours, pale, thin, carrying the sea in their eyes, to know where you're headed. The guards nod silently and let you through. When the pens come into view, they look different. In daylight, they're monstrous, vast concrete cathedrals built not for worship but for endurance. At night, they're almost peaceful. The floodlights are dimmed, the cranes motionless, the air heavy with salt and oil. You step inside. The sound changes instantly. Outside, the world breathes. Inside, everything is dense. The air hums faintly, a deep vibration that feels like memory. The walls are slick with condensation, reflecting the faint glow of maintenance lamps. And there she is, your boat, resting quietly beneath the gantry lights, her hull streaked with grime and salt. Men move over her like insects, dockhands scrubbing, engineers inspecting seams, a crane lifting a fresh torpedo toward the open forward hatch. The water around her shivers under the faint churn of a pump. She looks smaller than you remember. Or maybe it's you who's grown. You walk closer, boots echoing against the wet floor. Becker is there already, leaning against a support pillar, cigarette dangling from his lip. He grins when he sees you. Knew you couldn't stay away. Neither could you, you say. He shrugs. Figured she'd miss me. Funker appears a moment later, carrying his ever-present canvas radio bag. Still can't sleep without the hum, he mutters, setting it down beside him. Feels like the world's off balance when it's quiet. You nod. You know exactly what he means. The three of you stand there for a while, saying nothing, just watching. The submarine's shadow stretches long under the lights, the dark metal glistening like wet stone. A dock worker curses softly as a wrench slips from his hand and splashes into the water. The sound echoes through the pen, a brief, familiar punctuation in the hush. Becker finally breaks the silence. You think she dreams? What? The boat, he says. When we're gone. You think she dreams of the deep? You smirk, but there's no mockery in it. If she does, I hope she dreams of calm seas. He exhales smoke and nods. Amen to that. The Kaloon appears a few minutes later, coat buttoned, cap low. His posture is straight, his steps measured, but his face is drawn, lines deeper, eyes shadowed. He pauses at the edge of the dock, studying the boat like a man reading an old prayer. You and the others straighten automatically. At ease, he says quietly. You're not on duty. Still no one speaks. He steps closer, resting one gloved hand on the railing. She held up well, he murmurs. Better than most. Becker nods. She's tougher than we are. A faint smile flickers on the Kalian's lips. Perhaps. He looks out over the water for a moment longer, then turns to leave. Enjoy the rest while you can. Orders will come soon. You watch him walk away, his footsteps echoing across the concrete until they fade into the dark. Becker sighs. Soon, he says. Always soon. Funker sits down beside his radio bag, pulling out a bottle of schnapps. Found this in a supply crate, he says. Unlabeled. Probably poison. You grin. Perfect. He passes it around. The liquor burns your throat, sweet and sharp, cutting through the damp air. For the first time in days, you feel warmth that isn't from sunlight or memory. The three of you drink in silence, sitting in the shadow of the boat. Around you, the pens breathe softly, the drip of condensation, the groan of cranes, the whisper of water against the hull. After a while, Becker laughs quietly. You ever think we're just ghosts that the sea keeps forgetting to collect? You don't answer. You just watch the reflection of the lights ripple across the water, each shimmer bending and breaking like a heartbeat. When the bottle is empty, none of you move. You sit there until the night begins to pale, until the first gray light of dawn slips through the gaps in the roof. The dock workers start to stir again, voices echoing, tools clattering. Becker stands stretching. Guess that's our cue. You nod, rising with him. See you tomorrow. You mean back here? Where else? He smiles faintly. Figured as much. As you leave, you glance back one last time. The U-boat lies quiet in her berth, the tide rocking her gently against the ropes. She almost looks asleep, but you know better. The sea never sleeps. It only waits. It happens the way bad news always does, quietly in the middle of something ordinary. You're halfway through breakfast the next morning when the door slams open and a runner appears, breathless and soaked through from the fog. Orders from command, he blurts, holding out a folded paper sealed in gray wax. The mess hall falls silent. Forks stop midair. Becker mutters, too soon. The Kaloon takes the envelope without a word. He breaks the seal, reads once, then twice. His face gives nothing away, but something in the room changes. The air itself tightens. He folds the paper carefully, sliding it into his coat. Finish your meals, he says quietly. We sail again in 2 weeks. No one speaks. The only sound is the slow scrape of metal against plates as men resume eating, mechanically, wordlessly. 2 weeks. The words circle in your mind like gulls over a dying fish. You expected more time, repairs, drills, sleep. But time doesn't belong to you anymore. It never has. Funker stares down at his coffee, eyes hollow. 2 weeks, he murmurs. They don't even let the oil dry. Becker gives a grim smile. At least it means they still need us. You don't say it, but you both know that's not true. The sea doesn't need anyone. It just keeps swallowing what it's given. The Kaloon finishes his coffee, stands and adjusts his cap. We'll meet in the pens at 1600. Engineering checks start today. No delays. And just like that, breakfast ends. By afternoon, the harbor hums again with the old, terrible rhythm. Cranes creak, diesel fumes sting the air, boots strike concrete. The docks are alive, feverish. You see boats everywhere, some returning, some departing, some half dismantled for repairs. The whole port feels like a wounded beast forcing itself to keep moving. The U-552 lies waiting, her black hull freshly painted but still scarred beneath the surface. Mechanics crawl across her like ants, patching seams, testing pumps, hauling crates. The smell of oil and metal fills the air. Becker climbs out of the conning tower, hands stained black. New valves, new seals. Same old rust underneath, he says. It's like polishing a coffin. You raise an eyebrow. You ever think of saying something cheerful? He grins, teeth white through the grime. Not my department. The Kaloon appears from the pier, trailed by 2 officers with clipboards. He looks smaller against the concrete wall, but the air changes when he steps aboard. Men straighten. The chatter fades. Listen up, he says. Command's assigning us to the Mid-Atlantic corridor. Heavy traffic expected along Gibraltar routes. Escorts are stronger now. Air cover, new destroyers. We'll adapt. Someone mutters, always do. The Kaloon ignores it. We'll have radar detection this time. Snorkel fittings are underway. If they can't see us, they can't kill us. That's the idea. The crew exchanges glances. You can feel it, hope struggling against disbelief. Becker leans close. That snorkel won't save us from the sky. You shrug. Maybe it's not about saving us. That night, the barracks are restless. No one sleeps. Some play cards in silence. Others smoke until the room fills with blue haze. Funker sits by the window, headphones around his neck, turning the tuning dial of his pocket receiver. Static fills the air, the faint ghost of voices flickering in and out of the frequency. "What are you listening for?" you ask. He doesn't look up. "Proof," he says. "Of what?" "That the world still exists." You laugh quietly, but he doesn't. The next morning, the Kaloon gathers the crew in the control room of the boat. The air smells of metal polish and oil soap. The lights buzz faintly overhead. "Some of you may have heard rumors," he begins. "Yes, losses have increased, but so have the challenges. We were chosen because we endure. We bring back what others can't. That's our duty." He looks around the cramped space, his eyes resting briefly on each man. Funker, Becker, the cook, the helmsman. "You. 2 weeks," he says again. "Rest. Write your letters. Fix what you can, inside and out. When we leave as one." He turns to go, but pauses at the hatch. "And one more thing. If you believe in luck, pray for calm seas. If you don't, pray harder." No one laughs. After he's gone, the silence feels heavier than before. Becker finally exhales. 2 weeks, he repeats. Long enough to remember how to be human. Funker looks up from his radio. Or just long enough to forget how to survive. You run a hand over the cold steel of the bulkhead, tracing the faint grooves left by years of wear. The metal hums faintly beneath your palm, steady and indifferent. You realize with a dull certainty that you'll miss this sound when it's gone. The hum. The heartbeat of the boat. The echo of everything you've endured and everything you still will. Outside, gulls circle in the dusk, their cries lost against the grinding of cranes. You close your eyes, listening to the sea's slow breathing beyond the walls. It sounds like home, and you hate that it does. 2 weeks sounds like a gift, but it slips through your hands like water. Each morning starts the same. Gulls crying over the harbor, the faint smell of diesel carried on the wind, the low rumble of cranes waking up along the docks. You tell yourself you'll rest, sleep, eat, drink, remember what normal feels like. But the body doesn't believe you. It still expects the vibration of engines, the hiss of ballast valves, the rhythm of steel breathing beneath your feet. You wake in the barracks before dawn out of habit. The floor doesn't sway, and that alone is enough to make your pulse spike. You lie there in stillness, waiting for a sound that never comes. It's not peace you feel, it's absence. Becker sleeps in the bunk across from you, one arm over his eyes. Funker is already gone. You can tell by the empty space where his headphones used to hang. He never goes far. Usually, he sits by the breakwater with his radio, listening to the static like it's a prayer. You pull on your jacket and step outside. The streets are wet from last night's rain, cobblestones slick and shining in the first light. A few sailors pass, shoulders hunched, caps low. No one makes eye contact. Everyone here knows what 2 weeks really means. At the harbor cafe, the owner recognizes you. She doesn't smile, just nods toward the counter. "Coffee?" You nod. "And bread." She pours without speaking, the steam curling between you like smoke. The coffee's strong enough to sting your nose, and you savor every sip. The bread's warm, soft in the middle, crust crisp and perfect. You chew slowly, tasting every grain as if you might not get another like it. At the next table, 2 young recruits in fresh uniforms talk too loud. They laugh at nothing, brag about training drills, about how they'll make their first kills before winter. You glance at their boots, clean, polished, untouched by salt. For a moment you envy them. Then you pity them. You finish your coffee and leave a few coins on the counter. The woman nods again, eyes lingering on the medals pinned to your chest. Not admiration. Not even gratitude. Just a quiet understanding that men like you come and go, and rarely come back the same. Outside, the sky brightens over the bay. The pens gleam in the distance, gray as bone. You tell yourself you won't go there today. You lie. By afternoon, you're standing at the water's edge again. The U-552 sits half-shrouded under scaffolding, her hull glistening under a film of oil. Mechanics move over her with the same quiet reverence as priests polishing an altar. The sound of hammers and tools rings through the pens, echoing off the concrete arches. Becker's already there, perched on a crate with a wrench in his hand. He nods when he sees you. "Didn't think you'd last a day away." "I almost did," you say. "Almost." He smirks. "That's more than I managed." You both stand in silence for a moment, staring at the submarine. "She looks different," you say. "She always does," Becker replies. They clean her, paint her, patch her holes. But inside, he knocks the hull lightly with his wrench. Same heartbeat. You rest your hand against the cold metal. The vibration is faint, almost imaginary, but it's there. Or maybe it's just your own pulse answering back. Funker appears from the shadows, radio bag slung over his shoulder. "New frequencies," he says quietly. British chatter stronger now. They've moved their patrols closer. Becker grunts. "Means we'll have company." Funker shrugs. "Means we won't be lonely." The three of you share a dry laugh. It dies quickly. Later, as the sun drops low, the Kaloon arrives. His coat flaps in the wind, his boots striking sharp against the wet floor. He stops a few meters from you, looking up at the submarine. "Repairs are nearly done," he says. "Fueling begins tomorrow." You nod, but he's not really speaking to you. His eyes are fixed on the conning tower, as if seeing something no one else can. After a long silence, he says, "Every time we come back, it feels smaller." "The boat?" Becker asks. "The world," the Kaloon answers. No one speaks after that. When he walks away, his footsteps fade slowly, swallowed by the echoing vastness of the pen. That night, the crew gathers one last time in a backroom tavern near the docks. The air is thick with tobacco smoke and the sour-sweet scent of beer. Someone plays an accordion in the corner, the melody soft and slightly off-key. You sit with Becker and Funker at a small wooden table. The schnapps burns your throat, but it feels good. Warm. Alive. For a while, the talk is light. Old patrol stories, mechanical jokes, lies told for the comfort of hearing laughter again. But as the night deepens, the jokes fade, replaced by long silences and distant looks. Someone raises a glass. "To you, 552, he says. "And to the sea that always takes her back." You drink. Not to victory. Not even to survival. Just to endurance. When you step outside, the rain has stopped. The streets glisten under the moonlight. You walk back to the barracks in silence. The air smells of salt and wet stone. Somewhere far off, a foghorn moans, a low, mournful sound that feels almost like memory. You know what it means. 2 weeks is almost over, and the sea is calling again. The morning of departure arrives without ceremony. No speeches, no fanfare, no waving crowds on the pier. Just gray skies, damp wind, and the smell of salt that seeps into your lungs like memory. You stand beside the boat as the dock crew hauls crates aboard. Ammunition, tinned rations, spare parts. The rhythm is practiced, efficient. They've done this 100 times before. So have you. That's what makes it worse. Becker wipes his hands on a rag, glancing up at the sky. "Looks like rain," he mutters. "Better rain than planes," you answer. He nods, forcing a grin. "Not sure I can tell the difference anymore." The Kaloon moves through the organized chaos with quiet precision. He checks manifests, inspects seals, exchanges a few words with the flotilla commander. His uniform is immaculate, his cap perfectly squared, but there's something different in his eyes. Something slower, heavier. When the last crate disappears below deck, he turns to the crew gathered along the pier. "You know your duties. You know what's waiting out there. We've done this before." His voice carries through the wind, calm but hard-edged. "Let's bring her home again." No cheers follow. Just nods. Just silence. The dockhands release the mooring ropes. The engines rumble to life, deep and steady. You feel the vibration in your chest, familiar, almost comforting. As the submarine begins to move, you glance back at the harbor. The pens rise behind you like the open jaws of some enormous beast, concrete teeth slick with rain. For a moment, you think of stepping off, walking back into the city, disappearing into the crowd. But the thought fades. There's nowhere to go. You belong to the sea now. The boat glides forward, cutting through the gray water toward the breakwater. The sky hangs low and bruised, the horizon barely visible through mist. The air tastes like rust and rain. You climb the ladder to the conning tower for departure watch. The wind hits your face sharp and cold. You look out across the bay, same route, same shoreline, same smell of diesel and salt. Everything's familiar. Too familiar. Becker joins you, tightening his collar against the chill. Feels like we never left, he says. Maybe we didn't, you answer. Maybe we've been out here the whole time and the shore was just a dream. He laughs quietly. If that's true, it was a bad dream. Too quiet. You both fall silent. Below, the deck crew moves with smooth precision. Every sound feels amplified. The clank of boots, the hiss of water along the hull, the soft bark of the Kalian's orders. As the last dock line falls into the water, the tugboat pulls away. The Kaloon raises his hand. Engines ahead slow. The U-552 answers like a living thing, groaning as she turns her bow toward open sea. You pass the outer markers, the buoys rocking gently, the signal tower flashing its farewell. A few gulls follow for a while, crying over the wake. Then even they disappear, swallowed by mist. The coastline fades. The harbor becomes a smear of gray behind you. Then there's nothing. Just the endless, indifferent water. Set course west by southwest, the Kaloon calls. Aye, sir. The compass needle steadies. The bow points toward the horizon, toward another patrol, another uncertainty. Funker emerges from below, headphones already hanging around his neck. Signal's clear, he reports. No interference. Good, the Kaloon says. Let's keep it that way. The engines settle into their rhythm, that deep, steady heartbeat you've come to know better than your own. The hum fills the air, seeps into your bones. For a moment, you feel the strange comfort of it, the illusion of purpose, of control. Becker lights a cigarette, shielding the flame from the wind. Another round with the Atlantic, he mutters. She never gets tired, does she? You shake your head. No. She just waits. Hours pass. The shoreline vanishes completely. The world becomes a palette of grays. The sky, the sea, the metal of the hull all blending into one vast, shifting horizon. When the Kaloon finally gives the order to dive, it feels almost like relief. The sea closes over you with a heavy sigh. The light fades, replaced by the steady red glow of the control room lamps. You descend into the same narrow corridors, the same familiar smells, oil, sweat, metal. The air already feels thicker, warmer. Depth 50 meters, the helmsman reports. Maintain speed. Silent running, the Kaloon says. The hum softens. The world shrinks again. The ocean becomes your sky. You take your place at your station, movements automatic, mind oddly calm. It's as if every man on board exhales at once, settling back into the one rhythm that still makes sense. Becker passes behind you, muttering, "Back where we belong." You almost smile. Almost. Hours later, when your shift ends, you lie in your bunk, eyes tracing the rivets in the steel above your head. You feel the faint vibration through the frame, the heartbeat of the U-boat carrying you west. Somewhere far above, the surface waits. Somewhere farther still, the sky. But neither feels real anymore. Only the hum does. Only the sea. And it's calling you deeper. By the second day, the rhythm returns. It always does. The boat hums, the air thickens, and the world above becomes something half-imagined. Another life fading behind layers of steel and salt water. You move without thinking now. Wait. Or sleep. Repeat. The hours fold into each other until time stops meaning anything. Watches blur. Dreams fade before they form. Even the language of the crew changes. Words reduced to nods, gestures, half-smiles that say everything. Below 60 meters, the sea feels like a weight pressing on the roof of the world. It creaks and groans around you, a sound that once meant danger but now feels almost maternal. You trust it more than the silence. Becker spends most of his time in the engine room, sleeves rolled up, face streaked with grease. He mutters to the machinery like an old priest saying mass. "She's holding," he says every few hours. "Good girl. Don't quit on us yet." You check instruments, scribble notes, and listen to the steady hum of the diesels before they shut down for the next dive. The vibrations crawl through your boots, up your legs, into your bones. It's the heartbeat of the U-boat, and if it ever stopped for too long, you're not sure your own heart would know how to keep beating. Meals blur together. Bread that's more crust than loaf. Pickled cabbage. Tinned meat with a film of oil that never quite goes away. The cook does what he can, but the smell of the galley is always the same, stale air and desperation. "Better than the Atlantic swallowing us," Becker jokes once, spoon halfway to his mouth. You nod. "Barely." Funker sits across from you, headphones draped around his neck, his fingers twitching even when he's off duty. The static's worse lately, he says between bites. British frequencies are louder, cleaner, like they're getting closer. Becker rolls his eyes. You're just hearing ghosts. Funker doesn't smile. Ghosts have clearer signals than we do. By the 5th day, the smell of metal has soaked into everything. Your clothes, your skin, even your dreams. You dream of corridors that never end, of steel walls that close in tighter every time you breathe. The Kaloon keeps to himself more than before. He moves through the compartments quietly, eyes everywhere, mind somewhere else. When he stops to check the charts, his fingers trace the red lines like scars. The sea around you is vast and empty, but the tension in his shoulders says he doesn't believe in empty oceans anymore. Surface run at 0200, he says one evening. Short charge. Then dive again. No one questions it. No one ever does. At 0200, the hatch opens. You climb topside into a world made of silver and shadow. The stars stretch in every direction, sharp and infinite, so bright they almost hurt. The wind cuts through your jacket, cold and clean. You hadn't realized how much you missed the smell of the sky until now. Becker stands beside you, lighting a cigarette. The glow of the tip is the only warm thing in the universe. Hard to believe all that up there's real, he murmurs. It's real, you say. We just forgot how to live in it. The sea is calm. Too calm. The kind of stillness that makes you uneasy. You scan the horizon. Nothing but water and moonlight. The Kaloon joins you briefly, binoculars raised. Charge complete. Almost, sir, the watch officer replies. He nods once. Stay sharp. Quiet seas are liars. 10 minutes later, the order comes, dive. The hatch slams shut. The light disappears. The hum returns. The sea closes over your head like a door. Below deck, life continues. The air grows heavier by the hour, tasting of sweat and oil and breath. You've long since stopped noticing the smell, until now when it suddenly feels suffocating again. Someone coughs near the aft quarters. The sound bounces off the metal walls, sharp as a hammer strike. Funker glances up from his radio set. That again, he mutters. Same echo every time. What echo, you ask? He tilts his head, listening. A click in the static. Repeats every 6 seconds. Too regular for random noise. Enemy? Maybe. Or maybe it's us. He adjusts the dials, the faint whine of the signal rising and falling. Sometimes the sea talks back. You start to answer, but the Kaloon appears, his voice low but firm. Maintain focus. We're not alone out here. The crew goes quiet. Even the air seems to hold its breath. 3 more days pass. The pattern holds. Dive. Drift. Surface. Dive again. The cook finds a stash of onions hidden behind a crate of batteries and turns them into soup. It smells almost human. The men eat slowly, savoring the illusion of warmth. Later, Becker knocks on your bunk. You awake. You don't bother answering. He sits down anyway, elbows on his knees. Feels different this time, he says softly. Like the ocean's watching closer. You glance up at him. It always watches. He shakes his head. No, this time it remembers. You don't ask what he means. Because somewhere deep down you feel it too. The sense that the sea knows you now. Knows your sound. Knows your breath. And it's waiting. It begins, as danger always does, with a sound too small to notice. Funker's sitting at his station, head bowed, the red glow from the control room lamps tracing hollow shadows across his face. The hum of the motors fills every inch of space, steady as breathing. Then just under it, something else. A rhythm that doesn't belong. He stiffens, turns a dial, listens again. There, he whispers. You glance up from your post. What is it? He raises a finger for silence. The static crackles, then a pulse. Short, clean, precise. Not random. Not noise. Morse. The Kaloon is at his side in seconds. Origin. Unclear, sir, Funker replies, hand on the dials. Signals weak, intermittent. Direction, south by southwest. Maybe 200 kilometers. Could be a contact or a trap. The Kaloon frowns. Can you read it? Funker nods, scribbling on a notepad. Letters appear one by one, uneven but sure. Convoy sighted. Grid EJ41. Request support. You feel the air in the control room change. Becker exhales through his teeth. Another wolf pack? Possibly, the Kaloon says. Or bait. Either way we answer. He leans over the chart table, drawing a red line through the grid marks. Change course. Ahead 1/3. Maintain depth 70 meters until further notice. The helmsman acknowledges. The deck tilts slightly as the boat veers into its new heading. The Kaloon studies the map again. If it's real, we'll intercept by midnight. You nod, but your stomach tightens. Every convoy means escorts. Every escort means depth charges. Funker keeps the headphones pressed tight, listening. The signal repeats twice more, fainter, fragmented, then gone. Transmission ceased, he reports quietly. The Kaloon straightens. They've gone silent. That means they've engaged. Silence fills the boat, heavy as the sea pressing in on all sides. The hours crawl by. Becker checks valves for the third time. The cook pretends to clean dishes that are already spotless. Funker stays fixed at his station, scanning the ether for anything that might sound like human contact. You sit in the narrow galley passage, tracing your finger along the cold metal of the bulkhead. The vibration of the engines hums faintly through your skin. It's strange how you've come to find comfort in that sound. The constant reminder that something larger than you is keeping you alive. At 1800 hours, the Kaloon calls for periscope depth. The boat ascends slowly, groaning under pressure. The periscope breaks the surface with a soft splash. He peers through, turning the lens in slow, careful arcs. Nothing, he mutters. Sea's empty. Funker looks up. Maybe they're gone. Or sunk. The Kaloon lowers the scope. Prepare surface run at 2100. We need air and charge. Keep sharp eyes. If they're out there, we'll find them. Becker snorts. Or they'll find us. No one laughs. At 2100, the U-552 rises. The hatch opens with a hiss of air, followed by the cold slap of wind and salt. You climb to the bridge, blinking against the darkness. The sea is calm again, too calm. The sky hangs low, a dull smear of gray and violet. The moon hides behind the clouds, offering no help. You breathe in deeply. After days underwater, the air feels raw, almost violent. You'd forgotten it could burn your lungs this way. The Kaloon stands beside the navigator, binoculars raised. Compass bearing 221, he orders. Hold steady. The diesel engines growl to life. The boat cuts through the water like a shadow. Funker joins you topside, headset clutched in one hand. Signal again, he says, voice taut. Fainter this time. Same origin. Could be U-172. Alive then, you say. Maybe. Hard to tell through interference. He holds the earpiece against his head, listening. The wind tugs at the cord. They're calling for help. The Kaloon hears. Repeat. Funker nods. Mayday, sir. Broken transmission. Mentions air attack. Depth unknown. Becker curses under his breath. Another plane. The Kaloon lowers the binoculars. Mark bearing. Increase speed. We'll try to raise them. The boat surges forward, the engine straining. Waves slap against the hull. The air grows colder, sharper. You feel the old mix of fear and duty twisting in your gut. This is what you came for. Hunt, rescue, fight, survive. But it feels different this time. The air tastes wrong. The sky looks too still. The Kalian's voice cuts through the noise. Radar? Clear, the officer answers. Visual? Negative. Funker frowns, still listening. Signal's gone again, sir. Vanished mid-sentence. The Kalian's jaw tightens. Hold course. Maintain watch. You can hear it in his tone, the effort to sound certain when no one is. The night drags on. Nothing appears. No ships. No flares. No sign of the others. Only the sea, vast and empty, stretching in every direction like a thought that refuses to end. At 0100, the Kaloon finally says, dive. The order moves through the boat like a whisper of resignation. You descend again, leaving the surface and its false promises behind. The light fades. The hum returns. Funker removes his headphones, rubbing his temples. They're gone, he says softly. Whoever sent that call, they're gone. Becker doesn't answer. He just stares at the pressure gauge, lips pressed thin. The Kaloon studies the chart, pencil motionless above the paper. Then we keep moving, he says. No one argues. You stare at the condensation dripping from the overhead pipes, counting the drops until the sound becomes unbearable. Somewhere above, the wreckage of another U-boat drifts silently in the dark. And below, you continue forward, into the same darkness, the same silence, the same waiting. The sea swallows everything, even its own. The ocean is never truly silent, even when you want it to be. By the next night, the routine feels almost normal again. Quiet watch shifts, the steady pulse of the motors, the faint tang of diesel that seeps into every breath. The men are tense but steady. The Kaloon moves like a shadow through the control room, his voice low, his eyes alert. You're adjusting gauges near the navigation table when Holtz, the sonar operator, stiffens in his seat. His head tilts slightly, listening to something only he can hear. "Contact," he says softly. Every head in the control room turns. "Repeat?" the Kaloon asks. Holtz presses the headphones tighter, fingers dancing over the tuning knobs. "Bearing 240. Range uncertain. Could be mechanical or biological." "Mechanical," Becker mutters. "It's always mechanical." The Kaloon steps closer. "How strong?" "Faint," Holtz replies. "But consistent. Rhythmic. Not propellers, not quite." He pauses. "More like tapping." That word chills the room more than any explosion could. "Distance?" Holtz shakes his head. "Hard to tell. The echoes, off somehow." The Kaloon nods once. "Maintain course and depth. No sound. Engines to half." The order ripples outward. Valves hiss. The thrum of the motors softens until it's barely more than a heartbeat. Everyone listens. The tapping continues, slow, irregular, but undeniably there. 3 beats, then 2. Then silence. Then 3 again. Becker whispers, "Maybe it's an animal." Holtz doesn't look away from his dials. No animal taps in Morse. That gets everyone's attention. You step closer. "You're sure?" He nods, eyes unfocused as though trying to see through sound. It's too deliberate, too clean. Like someone's answering. The Kaloon leans over him. "Decode what you can." Holtz scribbles on a scrap of paper, murmuring under his breath. Dash, 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 dot dash. Then he stops. His pencil trembles. He looks up. It's repeating a call sign. "Whose?" "You, 172. Silence. Becker swears under his breath. "They're gone." "They were," Holtz says quietly. "But the signal's there." The Kaloon straightens slowly. "Position. Same bearing. Range, close. Within 5 kilometers, maybe less." The Kaloon hesitates only a moment. "Turn toward it." Silent running. No noise. The helmsman nods. The boat shifts, barely perceptible, curving into the dark. You stand beside the chart table, heart pounding in your throat. The memory of the earlier transmission plays in your mind. The mayday, the cut signal, the silence that followed. Now the dead are calling back. Minutes stretch into hours. The tapping grows fainter, then stronger again, as if drifting with the current. Holtz adjusts constantly, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's moving," he says. "Either drifting or descending." The Kaloon studies the depth gauge. "What's below us?" "Nothing, sir. Just water and pressure." The Kaloon nods grimly. "We'll descend to 90 meters. See if it follows." The ballast tanks hiss. The deck tilts downward. The hull groans softly under the change. The sound grows louder, closer now. Becker grips a pipe overhead. "That's not current. That's..." The tapping stops. Everyone freezes. The silence is deafening. You can hear the blood in your ears, the faint pop of the hull settling, the rasp of someone's breath. Then, one single metallic clang, hard and sharp. Not from outside. From above. The Kalian's voice is a whisper. "They've found us. Aircraft. Depth charge." "Too close for that," Becker mutters. The clang echoes again, followed by a groan that runs the length of the boat. Something scrapes along the hull, slow, deliberate, like claws against steel. Holtz rips the headphones from his ears. Whatever it is, it's right on top of us. The Kalian's composure wavers for the first time. "All stop. Cut everything." The engines die. The hum fades. The air feels heavier, as if the sea itself is listening. The only sound left is the slow creak of pressure and the faint drip of condensation. You wait. 1 minute. 2. 10. Nothing. Then, faintly, a series of pings, soft, regular, unmistakable. "Sonar. But not yours." Holtz whispers, "It's scanning us." Becker grips the bulkhead. "Destroyer?" "No," Holtz says. "Too low. Too close." He hesitates. It's below us. A long moment passes before the Kaloon speaks. Depth. Over 100 meters now, sir. The Kalian's voice is low. Then it's impossible. He stares at the ceiling as though the steel itself might offer an answer. No one breathes. The pings fade again, replaced by the same slow tapping. Softer now, retreating into the deep. Holt swallows hard. Signals moving away. Bearing changing. 270. The Kaloon straightens. Resume engines. Slow ahead. Maintain depth. The U-552 glides forward, careful, cautious. Minutes later, the sonar goes quiet. The ocean returns to its endless hum. Funker breaks the silence first. You think it was them? U-172. Becker shakes his head. Boats don't tap back from the dead. The Kaloon says nothing. He just looks down at his chart again, pencil hovering over the same grid square, EJ41. You realize that, for the first time, none of you wants to know the truth. You dive deeper that night, farther than you planned. The ocean presses close, wrapping the boat in darkness and wait. The tapping doesn't return. But every man on board hears it anyway, in memory, in heartbeat, in dream. The sea remembers, and it never whispers twice. It begins as a vibration, small, subtle, almost imagined. Then the sonar screams. Holtz jerks upright at his station, eyes wide. Contact, multiple. Bearing 185, closing fast. The Kaloon doesn't hesitate. Alarm Tachin. Crash dive. The words explode through the boat like electricity. Men move instantly, hands slamming valves, boots pounding steel, shouts echoing off the bulkheads. You grab a rail as the deck tilts forward. The ballast tanks flood. Water roars past the hull, a thunder that feels alive. The lights flicker once, twice, then steady again. Depth, 70 meters, the helmsman yells. Take her to 150, the Kaloon orders. The U-552 dives hard, the hull groaning under the pressure. You can feel it in your bones, the heavy, crushing pulse of the sea wrapping tighter and tighter around the steel shell that keeps you breathing. Funker listens to his set, static buzzing in his ears. They're signaling each other, he says. Pattern sweep. At least 2 destroyers. Becker mutters, probably more. The Kaloon stands motionless at the chart table, one hand gripping the periscope column. His eyes flick to the clock. They'll start their run in under a minute. Everyone goes silent. You can almost taste fear in the air, acrid, metallic, sharp as battery acid. Then it comes. A single distant ping. Then another. Then dozens, overlapping, crisscrossing the depths like invisible threads of sound. They've got us, Holt says quietly. Hold depth, the Kaloon replies. Engines to silent. No cavitation. The boat slows. The hum fades to a low, trembling heartbeat. The silence feels enormous. You can hear water shifting above, faint, restless. Then, the first depth charge hits somewhere to port, far enough not to break anything, close enough to make your teeth rattle. The explosion rolls through the hull like thunder through stone. Another follows. Closer. The lights dim, flicker, then hold. Bearing stable, Holtz whispers. They're triangulating. Decoys ready? Ready, sir. Stand by. The next blast slams into the stern. The pressure wave knocks you forward. A wrench clatters to the floor. Steam hisses from somewhere behind the control panel. Becker swears and runs for the engine room. You grip the railing, trying to steady your breath. Every instinct screams to move, to surface, to run. But the Kalian's voice cuts through the chaos, calm and absolute. Hold. We stay quiet. Let them spend their powder. The boat shudders again. The sound is deeper this time, a long, groaning roar that feels like the ocean itself is tearing open. The lights go out. Total darkness. You hear men breathing in the dark, ragged and shallow. Then Becker's voice muffled, no breach. Batteries intact. Just a fuse. The emergency lamps flicker to life. Dim red, the color of blood. The Kaloon wipes condensation from his cap brim. They're reloading. Now's our chance. Decoys, deploy. You pull the lever. The boat jerks as the first decoy ejects. A canister of compressed air and metal shrapnel designed to mimic your acoustic signature. Seconds later, it detonates a few hundred meters off. The sonar echoes scatter, confused. Holtz grins for the first time all night. They've taken the bait. The Kaloon snaps, Engines ahead 1/4, new bearing 220. Depth 200 meters. The hull moans under the strain, a long metallic sigh that vibrates through your bones. You can feel the cold creeping in, the kind that doesn't touch skin but settles somewhere deeper. Becker returns, wiping sweat and grease from his face. Starboard motor's running hot, but she'll hold. Make sure she does, the Calhoun says. The destroyers drop another pattern. You count them in your head. 1, 2, 3. The shockwave hits before you reach 4. A deep, concussive blast that punches the air from your lungs. Something heavy crashes to the deck. You hit the wall hard, vision flashing white for an instant. When the noise fades, you hear trickling water somewhere aft. Becker curses again. Minor leak in the cooling line. I've got it. He disappears into the haze of steam, the hiss and clank of tools following him. The Calhoun doesn't move. Hold course, he says. His voice is barely audible over the creaks and groans of the hull. They'll think we're dead. For 20 minutes, the boat drifts in near silence. Only the slow tick of the depth gauge and the sound of your own pulse mark time. Then gradually the sonar grows quiet. The pings fade, the propeller noise recedes. They're pulling off, Holtz whispers. They've lost us. A collective breath releases through the crew. Someone laughs softly, a thin, nervous sound that almost turns into a sob. The Calhoun leans on the periscope column, eyes closed. We wait another hour, then surface to periscope depth. Good work. Becker reappears, grease on his face, wrench still in hand. Did we lose anything? Only time, you say. He grins. Time's cheap. The Calhoun looks at him, then at all of you. Not anymore. The words hang in the air long after the engines restart, long after the gauge is steady and the lights burn clean again. You survived. Again. But the sea remembers every dive, every charge, every scar. And you know it will call the dead in full one day. For now, though, you're alive. You close your eyes and listen to the hum return, the rhythm of the engines, the pulse of the steel, the heartbeat of something that refuses to die. Outside, the ocean exhales. Above, the destroyers fade into mist. And below, the U-552 keeps moving forward, quiet, scarred, unbroken. The explosions fade, but the silence that follows is worse. It isn't peace, it's exhaustion wearing a mask. Every man aboard knows it. You can see it in the way they move, slower, heavier, like ghosts trapped inside their own bodies. The U-552 drifts at 200 meters, her engines idle, her heart barely beating. The Calhoun sits at the chart table, a cigarette burning low between his fingers. The smoke curls lazily through the red light of the control room, twisting into strange, nervous shapes. He stares at the map but doesn't see it. None of you do. The coordinates mean nothing down here. There's no north, no south, no time, just depth. Becker leans against a pipe, wiping grease from his hands. If they don't find us now, they will later, he mutters. They always do. Funker looks up from his radio, eyes rimmed with red. Then maybe we stay down, he says softly. Just drift. Let the ocean decide. You study him. He's not joking. None of you are. The Calhoun exhales a long breath. No, he says quietly. We surface when it's safe. We breathe air again. Until then, the sea owns us. But only until then. He stands, walks to the periscope, and grips the column as if to steady the boat by will alone. Trim her level. Keep her steady. The order moves through the men automatically like muscle memory. Levers hiss, gauges tremble, the deck evens out. Still the air feels thick, heavy. It tastes of oil and nerves. You glance at the pressure gauge, steady. At least the steel still holds. Hours pass. No pings. No explosions. Just the faint ticking of the clock and the slow, rhythmic creak of the hull expanding and contracting with each small shift in current. Holt slumps at his sonar station, head tilted, eyes half closed. It's quiet, he murmurs. Too quiet. Becker groans. You're starting to sound like a movie reel. Holt shrugs, voice flat. Doesn't make it less true. You close your eyes, letting the sound of the motors fade to nothing. Beneath it, you can almost hear your own heartbeat syncing with the pulse of the boat. This is what life has become, a rhythm shared with metal and water. The sea outside isn't enemy or friend. It's everything. It's home, prison, and grave all at once. Funker breaks the silence. You ever think about what happens when the air finally runs out? Becker chuckles darkly. You mean before or after the hull cracks? No, Funker says. I mean when we stop fighting it. When we stop pretending we can rise again. You glance at the Kaloon. He doesn't look up. We don't stop, he says simply. Even when it's useless? Especially then. That ends the conversation. At 0300 hours, the Kaloon finally says, prepare to rise. Periscope depth. The ballast tanks hiss softly as air floods in. The U-552 begins her slow ascent. The hull moans again, a deep, tired sound like old wood under strain. You feel it vibrate through the floor plates, through your boots, through your bones. At 70 meters, Becker mutters, feels like she doesn't want to go up. None of us do, you reply. Funker smirks faintly. Speak for yourself. I'd kill for sunlight. Don't tempt fate, Becker says. The Kaloon raises the periscope. The sea above is black. No moonlight, no horizon. Just darkness and the faint shimmer of rain hitting the surface. He sweeps the lens in slow circles. Nothing. Surface, he says finally. The U-552 rises with a long, groaning sigh. When the hatch opens, cold air rushes in, wet, raw, alive. You climb up to the bridge. The world feels impossibly wide after so many hours of confinement. The sky is empty except for clouds. The sea rolls lazily, dark blue fading into gray. No ships. No aircraft. No sign of the destroyers. Just the Atlantic stretching endlessly in every direction. You breathe deep, filling your lungs until they ache. The air smells like salt and rain and survival. Becker joins you, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. The flame sputters in the wind. Smells like freedom, he says. You nod, watching the smoke vanish into mist. For now. The Kaloon emerges, binoculars raised. He scans the horizon once more, then lowers them. Engines ahead slow, he says. We'll drift west. Conserve fuel. You can see the fatigue etched into his face now. Not fear, not even worry, just weariness. A deep, quiet kind that no sleep could fix. Becker leans on the rail, staring at the water. Think we'll make it home again? The Kaloon doesn't look at him. Home, he says softly. That depends on which one you mean. No one answers. The engines hum again, low and steady. The U-552 moves forward through a world that feels too large, too indifferent. Below deck, the men start to breathe easier, talking in low voices. Someone hums an old tune from Hamburg, off-key but comforting. The sound carries faintly through the hull, blending with the rhythm of the sea. You close your eyes, listening. The storm clouds thicken above. The first drops of rain strike your face, cold, clean, undeniable. For a moment, you almost feel human again. Then the wind shifts, and somewhere in the distance, a faint sound answers, the long, hollow moan of another ship's horn carried on the waves. The Kaloon lowers his binoculars slowly. Looks like we're not alone after all. The ocean gives nothing, but it never lies. At first, you think it's a trick of distance, an echo carried by wind across open water. But then it comes again. A low, mournful horn, drawn out like the breath of something ancient and alive. The sound rises through the fog in slow pulses. One tone, then another. Long pause. Then one more, fainter as if drifting away. Bearing 170, Holt says from below, listening through his headset. Definite ship signal. But it's strange. The Kaloon frowns. Strange how? It's repeating wrong. Like, not a distress call, not a navigation tone. It's irregular. Almost like it's answering itself. Becker snorts. Ghosts can't navigate. No one laughs. The Kaloon adjusts his binoculars, staring into the thick gray that surrounds you like smoke. The horizon is gone, devoured by mist. The rain stopped, but everything glistens with condensation, metal sweating under the sky. You peer into the fog beside him. The world feels smaller up here, like the ocean's closing in, swallowing sound and sight together. There, the Kaloon whispers. You squint. Shapes flicker in the haze. Masts maybe? A faint outline of a hull? The fog plays tricks with distance. 1 second it's close, the next it vanishes completely. The horn sounds again, longer now, closer. Funker climbs up from the hatch, headphones still hanging around his neck. No transmissions, he says. No radio at all. But sonar's bouncing something back. Big. Slow. No escort noise. Merchant. Becker asks. Could be. The Kaloon lowers the binoculars. Prepare tubes 1 and 2. Surface speed 5 knots. Sir, you say, hesitating, what if it's wreckage? Or, he looks at you, just one glance, sharp but not unkind. Then we'll know soon enough. The order goes out. The deck crew moves silently, checking the forward hatches, confirming depth settings. The sea itself seems to hold its breath. You glide forward into the fog. The engines hum low, barely audible above the steady drip of condensation from the conning tower. Then, out of nowhere, a silhouette looms. A ship. Huge. Merchant class by the look of it, but dead in the water. Her hull is rust-streaked, her paint blackened by soot and salt. The name on her stern is barely legible. Trafalgar Star, London. She shouldn't be here. The last convoy through this grid passed weeks ago. She's listing, Becker says quietly. See that angle? Dead engines. No escort. None. The Kaloon raises his binoculars again. Lifeboats. Gone, you answer. But, look at that. Near the stern, one of the deck cranes swings lazily in the wind, rope frayed, metal groaning with each small roll of the sea. And yet, the horn sounds again. Not from the ship's bridge. From somewhere deep inside the hull. Holtz's voice crackles from below. Sir, sonar's picking something up, close, maybe a few hundred meters off her starboard bow. Small contact. Could be debris. The Kaloon nods slowly. Could also be another sub. Or a mine. Becker grips the railing. You want to risk it? We'll approach to 500 meters, the Kaloon says. Periscope depth. The order drops down the hatch. The U-552 sinks gently beneath the waves, the fog turning to a silver blur through the periscope lens. Range, 400, Holtz reports. Hold position, the Kaloon says. Let's see what we're dealing with. Through the lens, the ship looms like a grave monument. The decks are empty, save for a few loose crates rolling with the swell. The bridge windows are shattered. The lifeboat davits hang bare. Then movement, something small, fluttering near the bow. A flag. Torn. British. But below it, painted hastily in white, you catch the faint outline of another mark, one not meant to be seen. A wolf's head. German. Your stomach knots. You look to the Kaloon, but he's already seen it. Captured, he murmurs. A supply ship maybe, taken by one of ours. But abandoned? The horn sounds again. Louder this time. Deeper. The tone vibrates through the water, through the hull. Holtz flinches, covering his ears. Sonar feedback. It's too close. Whatever's making that noise, it's underwater. You look through the periscope again just in time to see it. Air bubbles rising near the Trafalgar Star's stern. A venting release. Not natural. Dive, dive, the Kaloon shouts. The U-552 plunges instantly. The sea swallows light. The sound from above deepens into a bass roar. Then, a shockwave rolls through the water. The boat shudders violently. Instruments rattle. One of the lights bursts in a flash of sparks. Becker grips the manifold. Mine detonation. Funker pale whispers, no, that wasn't a mine. The Kaloon turns to him. What then? He hesitates. It came from inside the ship. The control room goes still. You glance at Holtz. He's staring at his sonar scope, hands trembling. Sir, he says, there's something moving down there, under the wreck. Propellers? No, slower, heavier. He swallows. Metal. The Kaloon straightens. Mark its course. Bearing 180, descending. You listen as the sound fades, slow, dragging, mechanical, vanishing into the deep. The Kaloon watches the chart, then lowers his pencil. We're done here. Surface. Course west. The U-552 rises again through dark water, breaking into open air with a rush of foam. The fog still lingers, but the Trafalgar Star is gone. Nothing remains but a sheen of oil and a few splintered planks drifting on the current. Becker stares at the wreckage. She sank that fast? Funker shakes his head. No, she was already gone. You don't argue. Because somewhere below, in the black water, you can still hear it, the echo of that impossible horn calling from depths no ship could reach. The sea keeps its secrets. You just sailed through one of them. The fog doesn't clear for another day. Even after the U-552 leaves the wreck's coordinates far behind, the mist clings to the sea like memory. The men speak softly, if at all. Every clang of a wrench or echo of a footstep sounds too loud, too alive. in the suffocating quiet. You've seen strange things before. The ocean does that. It twists distance, sound, even time until nothing makes sense. But what happened at the Trafalgar Star feels different. It was an illusion. It was deliberate. Something down there wanted to be found. Funker hasn't slept. He sits by his radio set like a priest guarding a relic, headphones pressed tight to his ears, face pale under the dim red light. Every so often he scribbles something in his log, shakes his head, and tears the page out. The Kaloon finally asks, "What are you hearing?" Funker hesitates. "Nothing and something. It's on our own frequency, sir." "Wait, intermittent. But it's using Kriegsmarine encryption." Becker looks up from the manifold. "Another U-boat? Maybe. But the code header?" He stops, swallows. "It's U-96. The room goes silent. Everyone remembers U-96. The Wolfpack patrol. The one that never came back. You all wrote their number on the galley board weeks ago and erased it just as quickly. "Are you sure?" the Kaloon asks quietly. Funker nods. "Positive. It's an old call sign, but the encryption matches their key rotation." "Read it out." He unfolds a crumpled scrap of paper, covered in pencil marks. "Signal received 0412 hours. Origin unknown. Strength low. Message reads, EJ41. Return. Below." "Below what?" Becker asks. Funker shakes his head. "That's all." The Kaloon studies him. "Could it be interference? Cross signal from another vessel?" "Possible," Funker says. "But the call sign's too clean." And the message repeated twice. Automatic like a beacon. The Kaloon paces the narrow control room, his boots echoing off steel. "Grid EJ41, he murmurs. "Same as the last attack. Same grid U-96 was lost in." Becker frowns. "You think they're still down there?" The Kaloon doesn't answer. By evening, the tension is thick enough to taste. Becker mutters that chasing ghosts will get them all killed. Holt swears he hears sonar echoes that aren't real. Even the cook keeps glancing at the ceiling as if expecting it to crack open. When you sit for dinner, no one eats much. Canned meat, crackers, weak coffee, the usual. But it's the silence that fills your stomach more than food. Funker breaks it first. "It came again," he says suddenly. "Stronger this time." The Kaloon sets his fork down. "Bearing? Unclear. Somewhere northeast. Maybe 200 kilometers. Same message. Same call sign." Becker slams his cup down. "We're not going back there, are we?" The Kaloon looks at him for a long time before answering. "We're to investigate any German distress signal within range. That's regulation." "Regulation?" Becker spits. "They're dead, Captain. We all know it." Funker's voice is quiet, almost pleading. "Maybe not. Maybe it's an automatic beacon. Maybe someone survived. Or maybe it's bait," Becker snaps. "A trick. The British play these games now, broadcast our own signals to pull us out of hiding." The Kaloon raises a hand. The argument dies instantly. "Enough. We investigate. Nothing more. Then we decide." You can tell from his tone, he already knows there's no real choice. Orders are orders even when no one's left to enforce them. 2 nights later, you reach the edge of grid EJ41 again. The same waters where U-96 vanished. The same part of the ocean where the Trafalgar Star should never have been. The sea is unnaturally calm. No wind. No swell. Just a slow, heavy stillness that presses on your ears. At 0200 hours, Funker hears it again. The signal. Louder now. He writes as it comes through, each burst of static, each pause, each desperate echo. When it ends, he turns toward the Kaloon, face ashen. "It changed," he says. "How?" "It's longer this time." He reads slowly, voice trembling. EJ41. Below. They are waiting. The Kalian's jaw tightens. He leans over the chart, tracing the grid square with one finger. Becker breaks the silence. "You can't seriously be thinking." "Prepare for periscope depth," the Kaloon says. "Captain, with respect. Prepare for periscope depth." The order carries down the length of the boat like a drumbeat. Valves hiss. Gauges drop. The U-552 slides beneath the surface once more. At 50 meters, Holtz's sonar starts to chatter. Not like before. This isn't machinery. It's rhythm. Slow, deliberate rhythm. "Captain," he whispers, I think I hear engines. Where? Below us. The Kaloon grips the periscope, scanning the murky depths. The lens sees nothing but green-gray gloom. But you can feel it, the faint vibration running up through the hull. Not water. Not current. Something mechanical, impossibly deep. Funker whispers, "Sir, it's sending again." He adjusts his dials. The room fills with a faint, metallic hum, steady, pulsing. Morse code. You strain to listen. Between bursts of static, the pattern resolves into 4 simple words. Not all sank here. Then silence. Everyone stares at Funker. He's shaking. Becker mutters, "What the hell does that mean?" The Kalian's eyes stay fixed on the periscope. "It means," he says slowly, "we're not the only ones still listening." At first, no one speaks. The words "not all sank here" hang in the air like smoke, impossible to breathe and impossible to ignore. Every man in the control room stares at the radio, as though it might explain itself if they wait long enough. The Kaloon breaks the silence. Depth 150 meters. Slow descent. No hesitation. No debate this time. Only obedience, the reflex of men too deep in the sea and too far from reason to resist. Valves open with a sigh. The U-552 dips lower, the pressure thickening until your ears pop. The steel hull creaks like an old ship straining against its own ghosts. Holtz keeps his headphones on, eyes flicking back and forth. Contact still below. Same bearing. Constant speed. Distance? The Kaloon asks. Hard to tell. Echoes distorted. The sound bounces like there's more than one source. More than one. Becker mutters. "You mean, what, 2 wrecks talking to each other?" Holtz shrugs helplessly. "I don't know. Maybe." The Kaloon leans over the chart table. "Keep following. We stop when the sound stops." The air down here feels heavier than usual. Even the smell has changed. Damp metal, burnt oil, the faint sting of ozone. The deeper you go, the more the boat itself seems to moan like it's warning you. At 180 meters, Funker removes his headphones and sets them down slowly, like they've burned him. "Sir," he says, "I'm catching secondary transmission." Short bursts scattered. Not from the same source. "Can you decrypt?" He shakes his head. "They're too degraded. But it's in German. Very old encoding." The Kaloon frowns. "How old?" Funker swallows. "Pre-war naval frequencies. We haven't used this code in 10 years. Becker exhales, his voice low. "That's impossible." "Tell that to the radio," Funker says. By 200 meters, you start to feel the weight in your teeth. The pressure hums through the hull like a giant breathing just outside the metal. The Kaloon watches the depth gauge with the stillness of a man who's made peace with something. Holtz whispers, "The signal's closer now. I can hear engine resonance. Very faint. Rhythmic. Like an old Type 7 motor, but slower." The Kalian's jaw tightens. "All stop. Hold depth." The hum of the engines fades. The silence that replaces it is vast, so complete you can hear the ticking of the clock 3 compartments away. Then, through the quiet, something knocks. Once. Twice. Pause. Then 3 more times from somewhere far below the deck. Becker freezes. "That's not ballast shift," he says. That's deliberate." The sound repeats, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. 3 short. 3 long. 3 short. Holtz's face drains of color. SOS. Funker grips the table. "Sir, we're at 200 meters. No one could be alive below that. Not without air. Not after all this time." The Kaloon stares at the ceiling as though listening to something only he can hear. Unless it's not them calling for help. What else would it be? Becker snaps. The Kaloon looks at him. A warning. The words settle over the crew like frost. For several minutes, the knocking continues, steady, unhurried, patient. Then gradually it fades into silence. Holtz leans close to his sonar, eyes wide. "Sir, I'm hearing movement. Something metallic descending below our depth. It's big." "How big?" He shakes his head. "Larger than us. Much larger. But not fast. Just sinking." The Kaloon lowers his voice. "Could it be a wreck coming apart?" "Maybe. But it's not breaking. He hesitates. "It's turning." Everyone in the control room stands motionless. Even the air feels still, as if the ocean itself has stopped breathing. "Bearing change," Holtz whispers. 195. Still below us. Depth increasing. The Kaloon signals quietly. Engines ahead 1/4. Follow at distance. The U-552 moves through the black, cutting silently between currents colder than ice. The sonar pings grow stranger, echoes bending back on themselves, layers of reflection twisting through the water like whispers. Then, faintly, the signal returns. The same 4 words, drawn out in slow metallic bursts of Morse. Not all sank here. Holtz grips the edge of his station. Sir, it's transmitting from the moving contact. Funker mutters under his breath. That's not possible. A wreck can't send code. The Kaloon straightens. Prepare marker buoy. Record coordinates. You scribble them in the log. Grid EJ41, depth 230 meters. Moving southwest. The Kaloon watches the compass for a long moment. Then he says almost to himself, there are stories. From the early patrols. Crews hearing signals after sinkings. Pings that lasted days. Some said it was ghosts. Others said it was echoes of the past. Becker crosses his arms. And what do you say? The Kalian's eyes don't leave the compass. I say the sea never gives anything back for free. The contact fades by dawn. No more signals. No more knocks. Only static. The Kaloon finally orders, ascend to 100 meters. Resume patrol course. As the U-552 rises, you can feel the pressure easing, the air growing thinner and warmer. But something remains, a heaviness that doesn't lift. You look at Funker, still staring at his radio. He whispers without looking up, what if the ocean keeps them all? Every crew, every voice. And sometimes when it's quiet enough, it lets one of them speak. You don't answer. Because somewhere deep below, far beyond sight or sound, something is still there, listening. By the time they rise back toward 100 meters, the air feels thinner, the boat lighter, but the mood darker than ever. No one speaks of what they heard below. The log entry reads only, unidentified contact. No hostile action. Nothing about the Morse. Nothing about the knocking. Nothing about not all sank here. But everyone remembers. Becker works in silence, tightening bolts that don't need tightening. Funker sits beside his radio, headphones resting on his neck as though afraid to put them back on. Holtz keeps glancing over his shoulder, as if something might still be standing there behind him. Even the Kaloon seems changed. The steel in his voice remains, but his movements have lost precision. He stares at the chart longer than necessary, traces old patrol routes like scars he can't stop touching. When he finally speaks, it's soft, like he's afraid of waking something. Maintain course west by northwest, away from EJ41. That night the crew sleeps badly. You lie in your bunk, the air damp and stale, the faint drip of condensation marking seconds in the dark. Usually, the hum of the motors lulls you, steady, predictable. But tonight there's a rhythm behind it. Knock, knock, pause, knock. You tell yourself it's nothing, pipes expanding, a loose bracket. But it continues, faint but deliberate, coming from the direction of the torpedo room. You sit up. Listen. The sound stops. From another bunk, Becker mutters, "You hear it too?" You don't answer. He exhales, low and rough. Good. Means I'm not losing my mind. You try to sleep again, but the moment you close your eyes, you see it. The green-gray depths, the wreck twisting below you, the Morse echoing through the dark. Not all sank here. When you wake, you're not sure you ever slept. Morning brings fog again. Even submerged, you can feel it, thick, pressing, wrapping the world in cotton silence. The sonar gives nothing but ghost echoes. Holtz adjusts his dials. It's like the ocean's gone deaf, he says. The Kaloon nods absently. Good. Let it stay deaf. But Funker doesn't agree. He keeps glancing at his equipment, turning knobs, rechecking frequencies. Something's off, he murmurs. The static's wrong. Too regular. Becker frowns. Static. Not this kind, Funker says. He scribbles notes in his log. It's like it's shaped. The gaps between bursts, they're timed. You're saying the noise has rhythm? He nods. Like breathing. The Kaloon says nothing. He just stares ahead, jaw tight, until finally he whispers, "Keep monitoring. If it speaks again, I want to hear it." By midday, the temperature inside the hull begins to drop. Condensation beads along the ceiling, running down in cold rivulets that fall onto your hands as you work. Becker mutters, Feels like the sea's in here with us. You don't argue. You just keep wiping frost from your instruments, though you know it shouldn't be cold at this depth. Then Holt stiffens. Contact. The word cuts through the gloom like a blade. Everyone freezes. Where? The Kaloon demands. Holt shakes his head, tapping the screen. I don't know. It's faint, like an echo bouncing between layers. It's following us. Distance? Maybe 200 meters. Maybe less. Becker curses under his breath. Could be a British sub. Funker shakes his head. No chatter. No active sonar. Just presence. The Kaloon leans over Holt's shoulder, eyes narrowing. Could it be debris? Debris doesn't match speed, Holt says. It's keeping formation. You feel it then, a faint vibration through the deck plates, subtle but alive. Like the water itself has developed a pulse. The Kaloon finally orders, come to 90 meters. Engines half. The U-552 climbs slowly. The pressure eases, but the feeling doesn't. After a few minutes, Holtz whispers, still there. Surface at nightfall, the Kaloon says. Until then, silent running. Hours drag by. Every sound feels amplified. The creak of bulkheads, the soft hiss of breathing, the drip of condensation. Funker keeps one headphone on, one off. Still the same signal, he says quietly. The rhythm hasn't changed. What rhythm, you ask? He taps the side of the radio. Listen. You press your ear against it. At first it's only static. Then beneath it something else. Soft, faint, slow. Like a heartbeat. You pull away. It's the current, you say, but even you don't believe it. Funker shakes his head. No, it's answering us. Becker slams his wrench down. Enough. You're hearing ghosts in the static. Funker's voice is low but steady. Maybe ghosts are all that's left out here. The Kaloon doesn't interrupt. He just stands at the periscope, eyes on the darkness above. Finally he says, surface. Slowly. When the hatch opens, cold air rushes in. You climb topside, blinking into a world half made of mist. The sea glows faintly, lit by the moon through fog, a pale, living shimmer. You can't see the horizon. Only endless gray. Then Holtz calls from below. Contact lost. The Kaloon nods. Good. But as you stand there, staring into the vapor, you feel it again, that faint vibration under your boots. Not engines. Not waves. Something else. It fades, then returns perfectly timed. Like a signal waiting to be answered. The Kaloon looks up at the clouds and murmurs, the sea remembers. And it's not finished with us yet. You glance down at the water. The reflection shivers. And for a heartbeat, just one, you could swear you see another shape beneath the surface. A hull, moving beside yours. Then the mist closes, and it's gone. Night falls without warning. The fog thickens until it becomes a wall of silver gray, swallowing the stars, the horizon, even the sea itself. The U-552 glides blind through the water, an iron shadow moving through milk. You're on watch duty beside the conning tower, coat soaked, eyes stinging from the cold. There's no wind. The ocean lies still, unervingly flat, as if something beneath is holding its breath. Then you see it. A flash. Faint at first, then brighter. A red flare bursting above the fog, burning for a moment before melting back into darkness. Flare? You shout. The Kaloon climbs up beside you instantly, binoculars in hand. Bearing? 085. He tracks the fading smoke, his jaw tight. Range? Hard to say. 5 kilometers, maybe less. Becker appears next, wiping diesel from his hands. Distress signal? Could be, the Kaloon says. Or bait. No one argues. You've seen too many Allied traps. Fake SOS flares leading U-boats straight into waiting destroyers. Still, something about this one feels wrong. Too deliberate. Too lonely. Engines 1/4, the Kaloon orders. Approach carefully. Periscope depth when we close to 2 kilometers. The command echoes below. Within minutes, the hatch seals and the U-552 sinks again, leaving the flare's ghostly glow behind. The boat hums low, the sound of machinery blending with heartbeats. Every man aboard is listening, waiting. At 2 kilometers, Holtz raises his head from the sonar. Contact ahead. Small. Stationary. Ship. He shakes his head. No propellers. No movement. Just floating. The Kaloon takes the periscope. The lens cuts through black water into fogged moonlight. He scans slowly, sweeping left to right. Then he stops. Object spotted, he says. Surface debris. Something burning. He adjusts focus. No, not burning. Glowing. You glance at Funker. He's already tuned his radio, searching for signals. Nothing on any frequency, he whispers. Just static. It's dead out here. Becker folds his arms. Then what's shining? The Kaloon doesn't answer right away. Bring her up, he says finally. Surface. The U-552 breaks the surface in silence. The night air hits cold and heavy. The fog glows faintly red from the fading flare above. You climb topside again. The ocean stretches out, still as glass, every ripple reflecting that eerie red light. Then you see it. About 50 meters off the port bow, something floats. At first it looks like wreckage, a shattered raft maybe. But as you move closer, you realize it's too regular, too intact. A lifeboat. Becker spots it first. That's British make, he mutters. Canvas hood, steel frame. The Kaloon nods. Ready lines. You pull alongside slowly. The engines idle to a whisper. The lifeboat drifts toward you, bumping gently against the hull. There are shapes inside. Bodies, Becker says, voice low. 4 of them. You lean over the rail. They're sitting upright, strapped to their seats. Faces pale in the flare light. Eyes open, but they aren't decomposed. They look preserved, as if they've only just died. Funker swallows hard. What the hell? One of the corpses wears a naval cap. You can make out the insignia. Not British, German. The Kaloon steps forward, frowning. Get the light. Becker shines his torch. The beam cuts across the small lifeboat. On the side, half hidden under grime and salt, you can still read the lettering. U-96. No one speaks. The fog seems to close around you, muffling sound. The flare sputters and dies above, plunging the sea back into gray. Becker whispers, "That's impossible. They were lost weeks ago." Funker's voice trembles. Then how are they still here? The Kaloon lowers his binoculars slowly. Secure the boat. Bring it alongside. Carefully. You throw lines, lashing the lifeboat to the side of the hull. The bodies sway gently with the movement of the water, their heads bobbing slightly, eyes staring into nothing. Becker looks away. Feels wrong, Captain. We shouldn't touch them. The Kaloon ignores him. He reaches down, takes the logbook from the officer's stiff hand. The pages are soaked, but one line remains legible under the flashlight. Signal heard. Followed below. They are waiting. The Kaloon stares at it for a long time. Then he closes the book. Cut the lines, he says quietly. Becker hesitates. Sir? Let them go. You obey. The ropes slip free. The lifeboat drifts slowly backward, fading into the mist. The 4 bodies remain upright, motionless, carried by the tide. For a while no one moves. The only sound is the distant slap of water against steel. Then the Kaloon speaks, his voice little more than a whisper. They found their way back. That's all any of us can hope for. He turns to you. Take us home. As the U-552 eases away, the fog begins to thin. The stars return, distant, cold, but visible at last. You stand by the rail, watching the horizon, trying to shake the image of those faces staring through the mist. Behind you, the engines hum, steady as ever. The boat moves on, alive in a sea that keeps its dead too well. Somewhere out there, you think the ocean is still whispering those same 4 words. Not all sank here. And for the first time, you believe it. The stars fade with dawn. By the time the first light bleeds through the clouds, the fog has lifted, leaving the sea wide and empty once more. The Kaloon stands at the bridge, coat buttoned high, eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind him, the men move with quiet purpose, checking gauges, sealing hatches, resuming the rhythm of duty. But something has changed. No one jokes. No one hums. Even the hum of the engines sounds subdued, as if the U-552 itself understands what it's seen. Course northwest, the Kaloon says softly. Home. The word hangs there for a moment before the helmsman repeats it. Home. 4 hours you travel through calm seas. The ocean feels different now, less like a battlefield, more like a cathedral. Every sound seems sacred. The hiss of water against the hull, the low hum of machinery, the distant cry of gulls returning to the coast. Funker keeps his headphones on, though he hasn't reported a signal in hours. He just listens. When you ask what for, he says, "I don't know. Maybe silence." Becker smokes beside the periscope, lighting each cigarette from the last, hands trembling just slightly. "You think they really came back?" he asks. You don't know how to answer. Maybe the dead don't rise. Maybe the sea just replays what it refuses to forget. By afternoon, the coastline appears, thin and gray under the mist. The cliffs of Brittany. Oh, or what's left of it. The Calhoun gives the order to surface fully. The diesel engines roar to life, shaking the boat with familiar energy. Men climb topside, squinting against the pale sun. It's the same ritual as always. The approach, the anticipation, the sense of almost being safe. And yet, it feels different this time. Holtz calls from below. Sonar clear. No contact. Funker finally removes his headphones, rubbing the dents from his temples. Radio quiet. Not even coastal chatter. Becker frowns. Shouldn't we be hearing signals from Brest by now? The Calhoun doesn't reply. He just stares ahead. When the port finally comes into view, relief floods through the crew. The old breakwater, the cranes, the faint smoke rising from the submarine pens, it's all there, real and solid and alive. Men smile for the first time in days. Someone starts humming an old tune. Even Becker laughs when the cook promises real bread and beer. But as the U-552 glides closer, something feels off. The harbor is too quiet. No voices, no whistles, no echo of activity. The cranes stand motionless. The concrete pens loom like tombs. Signal the base, the Calhoun orders. Funker sends the identification burst. The radio crackles, then falls silent. Try again. He does. Still nothing. Becker looks uneasy. Maybe they're keeping radio silence? The Kalian's eyes narrow. No, something's wrong. The engine's slow as you enter the channel. The water around the docks is glassy and still. A few gulls circle lazily overhead. And then you see it. A U-boat moored beside the pier. Same class as yours. Same markings. U-552. Your boat. Becker's cigarette falls from his lips. No, that's not. Funker stumbles backward, eyes wide. Captain? The Calhoun doesn't speak. He just stares. The identical number gleams faintly on the conning tower. Your number. Same paint, same rust streak along the bow. For a long time, no one moves. The sea laps softly against both hulls. Then Holtz whispers from below, "Captain, sonar's reading a reflection. 2 sources. But only one's moving." The Calhoun breathes out slowly. Hold position. The engines die. The silence that follows is absolute. You stand there, staring at the impossible. 2 boats. One alive, one still. The harbor smells of salt, diesel, and something faintly sweet, like decay long sealed in airless rooms. Becker grips the rail, voice breaking. It's us, isn't it?" No one answers. The Calhoun finally speaks. "We finished the patrol. That's what we were sent to do." He turns toward the men. "All stations, log completed. Record returned to port, 0 casualties." His voice trembles only once. "No ghosts. Later you disembark. The dock is cold, slick with oil. The air tastes wrong, too still." The others follow in silence, boots echoing off the concrete. The Calhoun is last to leave the bridge. He pauses at the hatch, glances once toward the twin U-552 moored beside you, and touches the hull as if greeting an old friend. Then he descends. Inside the pens, the lights flicker weakly. The old smell of metal, oil, and salt lingers, timeless. No officers wait. No orders. No sound but your own footsteps. Becker mutters, "Where is everyone?" Funker doesn't reply. He just looks back toward the entrance, toward the faint silhouette of the second boat, and whispers something you can't hear. When you turn to ask, he's gone. You look back again. The harbor is empty. The twin U-boat has vanished. Only ripples remain where the reflection once was. The Calhoun stands alone at the edge of the pier, cap in hand, staring at the water. He says quietly, "Every patrol ends the same way. We leave part of ourselves behind." You step closer, the cold wind cutting through your uniform. "Then what's left of us now?" He doesn't answer. He just turns toward the pens, voice barely audible. Enough to keep the sea company. That night, You dream of waves rolling over steel, of engines that never stop, of men who never surface. When you wake, it's the silence, the kind that feels eternal. Outside, the tide pulls at the dock, whispering like breath against stone. You listen closely, and beneath the water's murmur, faint but real, you hear it again. The low, patient hum of the U-boat's engines far below the surface. The same rhythm, the same pulse, the sea remembering and calling, always calling.